Hello, Stu.
Hey, Chris.
How you doing?
Oh, hold on a minute. There we go. Chris, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yep.
All right, perfect. It's a lot easier when I'm not on mute, which I feel like I say about 4 times a day now. Hey, Adam. Just so both of you guys know, Andrew had me live stream this early because I think he was a little bit late in getting area to commitment. So
Okay.
we are already live streaming whenever we get enough people here. So just as a heads up.
Don't do like I do. Forget about it. Just start talking to somebody. I had to have him cut out my video the other day. So, whoops.
Yeah, it tends to happen a lot. It's like mid-conversation. I tend to have whole monologues while I'm still on mute.
There is a way I think he can pause the recording, but it is what it is.
Yeah, probably on that part. I figure just let it run, and then he can always crop it down if he wants. So we've got about another 5 minutes before we go.
Do we have a full assembly of personnel showing up today, Stu?
I believe so. I think the only person who isn't coming is Dan, who is a school principal right now, is in the middle of a lot of things. And Jen mentioned that she's going to try to, but has a couple of things that have come up today that may preclude her so she sent a report.
Oh, you know, Stu, did you send me an agenda for tonight?
I did. You want me to resend it?
I'm going to print that. Yeah, yeah. You want to resend it for me? I'll print it right now.
1 second. Coming your way.
Thanks.
Question.
You know, I think I figured out how to stop the live stream since we're not there yet. I'm going to try it. And if not, I can always just put it back in. I've got the info. Oh, no. All right. Those. We're going to give it a second and make sure that it gets us going. We, Adam and Chris and I were on earlier, and it was just the three of us sitting here for 10 minutes in silence as it live streamed, so I shut it off. wasn't awkward at all. All right, we're going to give it 1 minute here just to make sure it catches up. Yes. Okay, we're good. All right. Hello, everybody. How's life?
Let's do. Hey guys.
Welcome to the
Gosh.
to June, I guess. Could be October. I don't really know. Lost track of time. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. I've got it at 5:35. In looking around at the list of participants, if you're here and you're on the screen, just raise your hand. If you're on a call, just say here if I see you. Adam, I see you top right. Dave Paul.
I am here.
Josh.
Here.
Deb. I see you. Yep. Catherine, I see you as well. Is Jen here? No, she mentioned she may not be able to make it. Dan, I believe, was the one ahead of time that said he wouldn't be here. And then Chris Romlin, I did text, but Chris Cott, I see you here. And also Rick Rogers. I see you on the screen there. So that's you. All right, so we have a quorum, I believe. Excellent. I will just make one comment before we dive into this. The purpose of tonight's meeting, there's nothing that we're voting on. It's fundamentally to allow us to just kind of catch up and then also observe the vendors that will be coming in. Oh, there's Dan. I'll admit him. So just as a heads up, if anybody's watching at home, it will be updates and we'll proceed. So with that, Catherine, do you want to just give sort of a quick overview on the minutes? You may be frozen.
Dude, Dan has joined us.
Yes. Hello, Dan.
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
All right. So I think Catherine's bandwidth is, we're fighting with it a little bit. She kindly circulated the minutes from May 7th. What I'd like to do just from a procedural standpoint is entertain a motion to adopt them or to accept them and then get a second and then have a discussion and then we can take a vote. So could I entertain a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
All right. Got a motion from Deb. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
That one from David?
Yes.
Yes. Are there any comments, questions, or corrections on the minutes? No. All right. All in favor? Please raise your hand if you're on the screen.
Stu, I'm going to abstain. I wasn't there. So
Perfect. Adam abstains. Thank you, Adam. I think, is there anybody who's not on the screen? Nope, we're all here. All right. Thank you very much, Catherine. As always, you do an incredible job. Much appreciated. All right, so couple of quick notes. DEM paperwork, I checked in with the DEM on Monday. They still have not sent out the paperwork. They said to expect it in the next couple of weeks, using the plural of week. And so we can't technically start anything until we have that paperwork signed. That's one of the stipulations of it. I will continue to check in with them. As we go through this, there's some fundraising related things we can do. And also, obviously, as the purpose of this meeting shows, we're going to collect as much information as we can, but we're still in a holding pattern until we get that. And the poor folks at the town hall, I've also been checking in with them to make sure that there's nothing showing up there either. So when we have it, you guys will know. On the fundraising side of it, Jen unfortunately is not here, but she did send a report, which I will read just so we have it. Where is it in here? She said, as far as she's been working on the pavers project that we discussed last time, and she said, as far as the updates for the bricks, Pretty much everything is done. We just need to submit photos to the company for the flyer that they will print for us. Once they have a rendering, she will send it off to them. They will create the brochure. We are responsible for having it printed. I think we can go digital with a lot of that. And we'll look at what the expenses for doing some printing will be. The bricks will be traditional red clay at Josh's suggestion. And the cost for a 4x8 brick will be $100 and $175 for an 8x8 brick, with the idea that for $75, you get double the space. Donors have the ability on that brick to upload their own graphic or to choose from hundreds of others for $10. And she indicated she will try to be on the call later on tonight if there's any questions that relate to this particular topic line, but appreciate the effort that she's doing in that space. So I think my children conned me into getting their faces on bricks. So be kind of creepy, and they're my kids. Online donations, one thing that I will just share very quickly. Let me pull it up here. If everybody can see my screen for a second. So this is the Recreate Town Farm website. And you'll notice at the top, we actually have a donate button.
That's really nice.
So within here, under about, I'm going to actually have to go in and add the committee meeting minutes to this. They are on the Secretary of State's website, but it's nice for people to be able to access them quickly. Some history about the place that we did not write, but we cited where it came from, just to give some people some context. My hope is to also connect with historic preservation and fill in a little bit more of this. So this will be our main platform for communicating with the public. This was just what we'd submitted to the DEM as a graphic, and some of the information, as well as the time frame that was in the grant. So nothing in here is hidden, it's all public. So Recreate Town Farm was the name we came up with, and that's what we did. There's also a contact form on here. And if people are interested in sending in information, there's options for them for getting involved. As we begin to develop subcommittees, I have a feeling that's something that we'll want to dive into a little bit more. So check it out. If you have thoughts or feedback on how we should change it, let me know. All right. Only other note that I have, and then I do want to kind of open this up a little bit to see if anybody else has any suggestions. Under grants, I had applied for an additional grant through the AARP. There was no funding requirement from the town. So what I did is I indicated that based on the funding that we already have, it could be considered a match, which is fine. But there was no new or additional funding that requires from the town. The ask for it was enough to cover the pickleball court cost, and also to put in a security system on the upper part of Town Farm. And so just as a quick backstory.
That's the AARP grant? Is that what you said?
Yep, AARP community grants. I do need to give Dave credit. He actually put an extra set of eyes on it before I sent it in. So thank you, Dave. The grant itself, it can be used for infrastructure like we are. Nobody in Rhode Island in the last, I think, 3 years has received a grant from them in this particular space. And it just so happened the original grant deadline was like early April. And when everything with COVID happened, it pushed it off. So it's worth a shot. If we get it, great. It takes a chunk out of what we need. It's about $18,000. If we don't get it, we don't get it. We just keep going.
So it's only been applied for. It has not been approved?
Correct.
Oh, okay. All right.
Correct. Yep. So we'll find out in early July.
Nice.
The vendor for the safety, the security system was the same one that did Grinnell's and was recommended by Chief Jones. I did specifically ask about if there was an issue needing to go out to bid. And my understanding is that because they're in the space already, that's not the case. Again, we don't have to use them. It's just a guideline for what we'd requested. So that was the initial understanding. So if we do get the grant, we'll dive into the details more. But I believe they were on the master price agreement as well. So what that's worth. I did want to pause here on just sort of grants and also tying it in with the sponsors and donors and just kind of throw it around. Is there any place else that people are aware of that we should be looking for money? Any other grants that come to mind, other sources, sponsors? What do you guys think?
Rhode Island Foundation?
I'm just going to say that. Yep. I was actually writing to the Rhode Island Foundation, just stemming off of some letters that I've sent to local businesses, VD, Bay Coast, Humphreys. But I'm working on an application for Rhode Island Foundation right now.
Awesome. I looked at the Champlain Foundation, and they just unfortunately they don't fund playgrounds. They would fit right in line with conceptually what we're trying to do from a center point, but they don't fund playgrounds. So. I did have a question, and actually, Adam, I'm going to ask you just because one of the things that we're going to need as we go forward is probably some help from local trades, and you qualify as a local trade, and I'm curious, what your thoughts are on how we should connect with business owners in the community, how we should ask, just general guidance on if we were coming to you, what would you want to hear from us to get involved with the project?
You've put me on the spot here, Stu.
I can come back to you.
Yeah. Let me think about it, please. Let me think about it.
Sure.
Let me take some notes here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stu, on that note, as far as the trades go, would it be manpower for installation? Would it be materials? What are you aiming for on that?
I think it starts with manpower, but I think eventually we're going to need help in, anything that we can cut out that we don't have to buy, essentially. And so I don't have a 100% clear vision of exactly what that is. I mean, when I mention trades, I think we're going to need people that are skilled labor to be able to help put stuff together. It's kind of my thought on it.
Did we look at, Stu, any kind of like, sometimes like the CDC on, they give a grants for like disease prevention, health promotion, or I'm thinking even the Parks and Rec Fund. I mean, did we look at like any kind of federal?
A little bit, and probably can dive into it further. I looked at National Parks and Rec Association, and I looked at the areas of the project that were impacted by. So, for example, USA Pickleball, and then not like the NFL, for example, has Play 60, and they have funds that relate to that. There are other sports that have similar type of pieces. What I've kind of found right at the moment is that most of the grant programs have been put on hold.
Yeah, I was going to say they might not have any money right now.
Or they're just waiting to see what happens because
Right.
people can't get outside yet. So
Right.
I was really surprised by the ARP grant being live. That was kind of a.
All right, Stu. So I guess this is kind of, I don't know if this is the same question that Dave just asked, but so for volunteer help, what kind of work are you looking for people to volunteer for? I mean, what are the volunteer opportunities in the playground? What do we have to pay for, and what do you need? Where do you need to save money?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think some of this is going to get sorted out as we go. So there's obviously materials that we're going to have to purchase. So at the high level, it's everything from, we do want to redo the tennis courts as part of the pickleball elements. So that's
So
one piece.
part of your request would be possibly discounted, building materials and.
Yeah, the engineered wood is another place. If we can get mulch at a discount, not mulch, engineered wood. At a discount.
Okay.
That would be one piece. I also think we're going to need some help to the DPW as part of the ask contributed to installation on things. And if we can take some of the stress off of them, I don't possess that skill set.
Because the bigger parts of the playground are going to be installed by the supplier, right?
Yeah, I think that's my understanding. Josh, are you not, if I'm correct on that?
All right.
Correct. So there's likely equipment that is going to be taller, have more specialized installation knowledge. So you'd probably leave that to the contract, the playground manufacturers, contractors. Okay. But there's definitely stuff that other contractors,
like the accessory type
install.
Stuff. Okay.
Correct. And the smaller play structures. I mean, based on what we heard from Jamestown, that's essentially what they did. They had the playground equipment manufacturers set the main towers and the bigger stuff.
Okay.
And then, volunteers and, resources set the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
Stu, can I ask a question about, I love the idea of the pavers, but is there any other opportunity for anyone, say small businesses, to advertise on a bit of a bigger scale? I don't mean big like the big signs you see attached to outfield fences and baseball fields, but something of a larger sign scale. Is there any room for that? Can a business 5,000? You can have X size and kind of keep it maybe only a few opportunities or something like that. Is that possible or no?
I think it's going to depend on the equipment. So I know, and hi, Jen. I know that Jen had actually, as perfect timing, had suggested in the past, based on, if you did little spaces, each one could be sponsored by a business. I think some of the opportunities in that vein are going to be dictated by what the final, especially the playground, ends up looking like.
Yeah.
In terms of putting signage up on, say, like the sign, the fencing by the tennis courts, I don't know if that's something that we'd be interested in doing. I do know that we are going to put up a big sign to recognize everybody who's a contributor. It won't be unique with logos per se, although there might be space at the bottom that we could add to that. But I think the intent is to have a bigger sign that recognizes everybody, including those that were involved with the first version of Town Farm, and we could look at how do we modify that. So I don't have a really clear answer for you, Dan. I think it's something we can figure out as we go along, because we've talked about benches and other elements that we could sell, but signage is one we haven't really looked at.
Right, gotcha.
Chris, is there any kind of anything that we need to be worried about as far as sign ordinances because it's town property?
I would assume that there is. You probably need whatever signage you want to do like that. You'd have to go to town council. I know that when they want to put vendors around the ball fields, they had to go seek permission for that. But if you wanted to put like sort of plaque recognizing vendors or like a monument type thing, I think that you would probably still need to go before the council to seek approval to do that. I don't think they're going to allow you to take contributions and agree to put up a vendor's slate or a sign without going before the council.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because I remember when that happened with Little League.
Yep.
And it had to be a certain size, it had to be and it had to be removable. I remember that.
Right.
Okay. All right. So something we need to consider is we need to make sure that we understand what the ordinances are and any kind of restrictions.
Yep.
And just to be clear, the sign that I was referring to were individuals who had volunteered their time, I wasn't referring to from a commercial standpoint. So absolutely agree that we gotta make sure we check all the boxes before we.
No, but if there's a way to recognize people who contribute in any way, that I think that's a viable request. I think we just need to go through the right process to do it and make sure that we do it appropriately.
Yeah, so I think after we take a look at what the vendors are and we've settled on it, probably before we start doing anything, get it in front of the town council just to do with what to maybe look at it globally.
Very similar to what we were talking about with the pavers. Like if you had benches and somebody wanted to do something in memory of somebody, you could put a little plaque on a bench. But I still think that you would still have to go to council for any kind of signage like that, just so they're agreeable to it, that they understand it. I don't think it's an issue. I just think you need to go through that process.
Yeah, I'm sure there are limitations on what people in good taste could write on bricks.
Yep, I agree.
Okay.
So what kind of basic, building and site materials are you going to be looking for, Stu? So you have the mulch. Is there like gravel? Like, do you need somebody to plant grass? Do you need loam, concrete? I just kind of need an idea of what type of materials that easy stuff that's not going to break a small business if they try to help paying for it.
Yeah.
I know you have some specialized rubber, rubberized asphalt or something that's going down, or are you just doing the mulch? Or
so I think it's the poured in place rubber, what we were looking at
Okay.
initially. And so the presentations tonight may give us some different ideas, but
Okay.
initial concept was to do poured in place rubber in designated locations and then sort of surround
And then
that with,
that engineered mulch that you were talking about?
yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not sure what the substrate on that would be, Josh. I'm assuming with drainage, but we're also going to have to pour concrete there.
For engineer, no, so it's under the rubber, it's usually type of gravel, compacted. And the base material could likely be the same under the engineered wood fiber.
So Josh, the
Um,
people that install that poured rubberized, mat,
Yep.
do they like to
Specialized
prep? Do
contract.
they like to prep for that themselves, or can
Usually the
somebody from
base,
outside prep for that?
yeah, usually the base is prepped from the outside.
Oh, okay.
That's my
So
understanding.
we would just get specifics on how to prep that correctly and get it ready for them.
Yeah. And right, I had verbal confirmation or verbal, donation of concrete. So I just need to provide volumes and cubic yardage of concrete, but I'm fairly certain that we have a solid donation for concrete.
I mean, as far as the mulch goes, I know the town has an agreement with the state for a different rate. It's much cheaper to go through DPW than the playground vendors. We found that out the hard way at Ranger.
Rick, any comment on that?
I do not know, Jennifer or Stu, what the rates are outside of that, but I'm sure that we could get it cheaper than the typical person just calling in.
Yeah, I think it was about $10 less a foot when the school department called for the rate through the state, as opposed to what we were getting through the vendor.
So we might look at the state's master price agreement.
Yeah.
If there's
Yeah.
Yes, and we do not get a lot of mulch actually, Jennifer, but we do a lot of bids and MPA purchasing, that kind of thing. So we can certainly look into that and see what the rates are.
Rick, does the DPW process any old, concrete or asphalt when they do road work, or is that's totally done out of house?
Adam, yes, we do a lot of asphalt grinding,
Oh, you
but
do?
we
Okay.
do not, but not concrete.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, sort of at this point on this part of the discussion? Okay. With that, I'm going to ask John LaRue to come in. I'm just opening up the waiting room, so we'll give him a second. John, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I think you can see me.
We can. All
I
right,
can-
friend.
Okay.
Well, thank you for joining us. Appreciate you taking some time to give us sort of your thoughts for what we could do with Town Farm. It's for just as a guideline, we're giving everybody about 20 minutes with about 10 minutes of questions afterwards. So there's a little flexibility in there. We have two other vendors after you that we also need to account for. So with that being said, take it away and thank you for joining us.
Okay, so first thing I got to do is I got to hit share screen and then my PowerPoint
You got it.
in that order.
In that order.
Hold on, you guys, hold on. All right, can you see it or not?
Not yet. So you gotta, if you open up the slide, the share button, and you clicked on it down at the bottom right of your screen, there should be a little share button again in that dialog window.
Okay, hold on. Just a second.
All right, so we can see your dashboard now.
All right, hold on. How do I,
Desktop.
my pictures are in the way. Hold on. Can you see that?
Gotcha. Go for it.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out where I can see you folks, so hold on one second. I'm trying to get everybody on my screen so I can see everybody. I can see Stuart, see Kata, Adam's iPad, good old Joshua's. Anybody else other than the 5 of you or the 4 of you?
There's actually a bunch more of us here, but depending on how your screen is set up, you may only be able to see either the active speaker view or you'll be able to drag it.
Try it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, 1 second. All right, gang. Again, I just want to make sure that we know what we're talking about as far as space. We've got this little space right up here, the 5-sided space. There was this little triangular area here that was a possibility. And then down here by the tennis courts is the fitness area, right? So that we just make sure we got all our areas coordinated. And for those of you who don't know me, this is a little bit about myself. And I can email you over the PowerPoint in a PDF format so you can see it all. But I mean, my background is therapeutic recreation. I've lived in Little Compton now, lived in Tiverton for a while. I built a shade over at your at the Grinnell Beach there last year, I guess, year and a half or so ago. But I've got all sorts of certifications in therapeutic recreation, playground stuff. I'm one of the very few people in the industry that operates what they call a triax and a rotational pentrometer. I do all the field testing for accessibility and safety. I do a couple hundred inspections a year around the New England area. So I'm very, very technical when it comes to regulations. Some of you may know I did all 6 playgrounds for the Tiverton schools. I also did Westport Community Playground, Swansea Playground, and I just did 3 playgrounds in Somerset in the last year. So my focus is made in the USA. And the other thing about me is I'm a little different. I'm not obligated to sell anybody's equipment. I'm an independent contractor, and I've got a lot of different product lines to fit what your needs are. Boom. The primary area right here, this is where the old Henderson used to be, which my kids have played on it many, many times. Right up on the top here is where that other triangular area was going. And again, this was a preliminary sketch I did way back when. This area here was the primary, that's the triangle, that's the fitness area. So there's a lot of different spaces in which to work here, but your space is not as big as I thought it was going to be, actually. First thing I came up with, remember when I sent out those posters, was something on our Rocks and Ropes program. And this right here is in that top triangular area. And Rocks and Ropes is all precast concrete. This little tractor right here, for example, it's roughly 7 feet by 6 feet, it's 5 feet high. And you'll see that that tractor weighs 7 tons. It's not going anywhere, and it's going to last for 20 years. When we talk about accessibility, integration, inclusion, when you're doing a lot of ground level activities like this, we want people with mobility impairments, wheelchairs, walkers, et cetera, to be able to get inside. But as Joshua would know, there's regulations that call for spacing between equipment. So this application here, and I'm going to show you the picture in a minute, we've got a little area rock right here, and I've got another little rock right here that's called the ADA transition rock. So a wheelchair was going to roll right over this to get into the inside of this play space, which is this. This is what the Rocks and Ropes look like. And right here where this little girl is, this right here is called the ADA rock, we call it. So you can go, it's a flat transition. Again, it's just regulatory things for how things are spaced apart. This is all solid concrete, precast. A lot of different things between the tractor, the barrels, you know, the cow, hay bales. It's kind of windmills a riot over here, climbing net. There's another view over here, a little crawl through panel in here as well. But this was a section I wanted to propose for the top corner of your play area, very theme based. The next item that I had sent over back in November was our elephant play. And this is a product that comes out of Montreal. These are the people that pioneered the rotating net. This thing right here rotates, kind of spins around. It's pretty wild. And they do all sorts of funky nets. This is a very low to the ground net. It's one of my favorites, actually. Very, very user-friendly. It's within the reach range of anybody with a wheelchair or walker, by the way. But the Elephant Play is the only product I have that's manufactured outside of the United States. We did come up with a design that I'm going to show you here in a second. It's around $287,000 delivered. We do have a zip line, and we actually have climbing clusters like this. By the way, it's 9 feet off the ground. That's a pretty high climb. And where this little, I assume you can see the little ladder right here, correct? I think you can. Yeah, it's because the all your pictures are in the way. But this right here, for us to be ADA compliant, we would take out this ladder and we put in a transfer station. I'll show you what that is in a minute. But this is all white cedar post right here, and this is a climb that goes up to 9 feet. That's a steel mesh net up here. Very different, very original. Not a lot of there's not a lot of this in the United States yet. It's brand new from last year, actually. And this was the design that we had put together for way back when. Again, utilizing that top triangular area up here. I just thrown a little pathway in here. But you could see we have got this incredibly tall nets here. And this, while I'm talking about this unit right here, I always like to talk about this, the industry-wide mockery of the ADA. I'm one of the authors of the design guide that's published by the Department of Justice and ADA, and I kind of fought against these things right here to be called accessible. But this unit right up here, this mega net structure, is accessible because it's nothing more than a net. Meeting the Americans with Disabilities Act is one thing. Being totally inclusionary is another. I'm not so sure you guys want to go this route, but it's a possibility. The transfer station, for this big unit here, here's a little unit, and you can see a transfer station is nothing more than fat steps. So we would put this on here. That entire structure would be completely ADA compliant, absolutely ADA compliant. But there's a difference between the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. I'm just not sure exactly how far into the accessibility and the inclusionary you want to get, but I'm going to show you how we can do ramps in a second. The Columbia Cascade timber form line we have, phenomenal. This is all manufactured from Oregon. In Oregon. Douglas fir, recycled plastic timbers.
Do you think you can run out and get him some food?
And it's also what they call pipeline, which is Schedule 40 pipe. The Columbia Cascade, this structure right here, this would be either available in the natural wood product, Douglas fir, or in recycled plastic timber. This unit right here is a 2 to 5 unit. It runs around 114K, and this is totally ramped. You can get it wheelchair up all the way through here. This right here, the theme-based product, is our barn with a corral in the back. There's a series of, this unit is not ramped, but it has all the necessary ADA transfer stations. And you want to get into other designs such as theme-based with a lighthouse, something like this. Then we get into natural. This is a good look at what the Douglas fir looks like with a log scramble in the foreground. So you got a lot of different design choices, a lot of different material choices here. What we call our nests, the play frame, log scrambles and log stacks. We're still one of the very few that do wood-based swings. And then this right here is the timber form icon for the arch ladder. This right here is a playground we just did in Framingham, Mass, as a matter of fact. A lot of different choices, but it's all made in the USA. Now we get into the big toys, which is the main product that I've been doing since for 30 years now. We have a fitness area up here. This is that main area. It comes right up to here across. That's where that 65-foot mark is, but we use the triangle. This is going to show you how you can put in a school age, early childhood set of swings. And I'm going to show you the two different fitness ideas that we have here for you. For this one right here, I'm going to tell you to think Ninja. This is strictly ages 13 and up. This is adult fitness equipment. We got stuff in here for the seniors. It's all spotted all over throughout the entire structure, but this fits that spacing that we were provided for up near the tennis courts. And that's a shot of what it looks like. Very high off the ground. It gauges ages 13 and up only. But we've got stuff for our seniors right here, very passive play, stepping, balancing, arm play, and it's designed to go in a loop for the adults. And this is geared ages 13 and up only because of the height. These things are pretty high. Then I did another Ninja idea here, but this is for ages 5 to 12. Now, can adults do this? Certainly can. But this is, the heights are going to be such that they are compliant for kids ages 5 to 12. And this right here has a set of rings. It's got what we call a sky game. And again, you're going activity to activity to activity. Your feet never touch the ground. This unit up here we put in, this is probably the most integrated, accessible piece of playground equipment on the planet. That's a transfer height platform right here. So somebody could transfer for a chair to get on the deck, or you could drive up to the side to the deck. Here's the windlass. You crank it, the gondola goes back and forth on a track. This is our little schoolhouse, clubhouse section over here at the end. But it's very, very manipulative oriented. It's totally hands-on. You're going from one end all the way to the other, never touching the ground. But this would be something that would be ideal and indicated for kids under the age of 12. Can adults do it? Sure. Then we get into the larger structure here for ages 5 to 12. That's the big unit. This is a, I don't know if any of you in your research for inclusionary accessible playgrounds, but Big Toys and Playcore is a partner with the Boundless Playground Group. And this is one of the structures for that. But we have swings with a little spinner, little sun shelter, little spinner. Here's a little early childhood unit up here. And we've got a bunch of music play over here. This will fit your space. That's what the structure looks like. And you can see it's extensively ramped all the way up here to the 54-inch platform. Little seat, dish swing over here. And that's the other thing that keeps, while I'm talking about this dish swing, there are two regulatory groups, the American Society for Testing Materials and the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission guidelines. Dish swings meet the ASTM standard. They do not meet the public playground standard. I can't recall if Tiverton is self-insured or not. Are you? Do you know? Stu, do you know if you're self-insured for town?
No. Look at Chris is on mute.
It's with the trust.
Pardon me?
It's with the interlocal trust.
They are not self-insured.
Right. So we need to, then you can have something like a dish swing. So we got to check the insurance requirements for ASTM and CPSC.
We reached out to them this week. I haven't got an answer back yet.
Yeah. Well, so that's why it's very important to know that.
Yep. Well, no, before make it
limited, but all of this stuff in here is going to meet the Consumer Product Safety Commission guidelines. Not all of the equipment, all of the equipment in here will meet the ASTM manufacturer standards. 99% of it meets the CPSC guidelines. But all of this in here is all recycled plastic, recycled metal, different view. The uprights, recycled aluminum, recycled steel. The decking is a 98% post-consumer recycled plastic. An awful lot of players in the industry use the Trex-like product. Trex is 50% sawdust, 50% commingled plastics. Our plastics are manufactured by Bedford, and they've been so since we've been doing this for 16 years, are recycled. These are milk jugs. It's we're able to tell you how many pounds of scrap metal are in this and how many milk jugs are in this thing. And it's not just a marketing thing, it's a real percentage. Big Toys, by the way, Gosh, we were in, when you guys redid Grinnell Beach, you took out my big toy from 1989. Still there. We used to use that as a poster for Survive Hurricane Bob. I took pictures of it after Bob. We used that as a marketing piece for quite some time, actually. But that was a natural wood product. This stuff right here, it's all recycled plastic here, recycled aluminum or recycled steel uprights. Depends on the
John, can I interrupt?
Yep.
So what's the warranty on the finishes and the materials?
The decking material for big toys is a 50-year warranty. If you do a wood-based product, it's going to be a 12-year warranty. But the
so
wood,
50-year on the composite / recycled materials?
Yeah, that's 50 years. Realistic.
What about the paint on the aluminum parts and the steel parts?
If you what we can do on the painted metal, there's a treatment that we put on it.
Yep.
For coastal.
Okay.
Coastal. We just built one in Old Saybrook, Connecticut, on the beach, and takes an extra 2 weeks, but it's a different process that we do to the coating and the metal.
Okay. And so, what's the warranty for that coating?
2 years. Okay. Realistically, it's going to last probably 15.
Okay.
You're muted, John.
Pardon me? This is a very, very strong warranty when the recycled product. I did the Tiverton schools probably 10 years ago. Does anybody remember when I did those?
10 years ago.
Was it 10? Yeah. To my knowledge, I haven't replaced one thing on that product on all 6 playgrounds. I don't think I've done one thing to those. They're pretty bulletproof playgrounds. Wood, you have to take care of.
Right. All stainless steel hardware. I'm guessing, right?
Well, it's either stainless steel or some of there's a lot of it
ceramic coated.
Some is galvanized, some of it's nickeled. But what we've been doing the last, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years, if you're within 10 miles of salt water, we do the coastal package.
Oh, okay. All right. Yep.
Yeah, we've been doing that for probably 6 years now.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I don't want to deal with headaches, and I don't. So that's a different view of what the early childhood unit would be on over here. This right here is the school age view over here, and again, that's all 98% post-consumer recycled plastic. Now, Trex, which is a great product from the 90s. Difficulty with Trex over time is that it's 50% sawdust. You get a little bit of moisture in there. It's problematic. But
have you gotten any negative feedback about any of the equipment heating up?
Yep.
To where it's injuring anybody or hurting anyone?
No, nothing that really hurts. I mean, I haven't had any formal complaints on that. Okay. Anything that's got recycled plastic, even paint coated metal decks, the plastic coated or the PVC coated decks, or even the plastic decks, they're going to get hot.
Right.
Anything that's synthetic is going to get hot. The coolest to touch is wood.
Yep.
But that's just it's in the industry. There's so much metal out there. There's so much black plastic PVC coating. That stuff gets really, really hot.
Yeah.
Synthetic material gets hot. Absolutely. That's kind of a nature of the beast.
It is. I deal with the same thing.
I mean, it just nature of the beast. You could put shade units over all these things. I wouldn't up here.
Right.
We don't have that many days. It's not like you're in Florida and Texas.
Okay.
You can if you want, but I wouldn't. If it's too hot, you're not going to be outside anyway. And also, by the way, you're considering doing, well, I'm going to talk a little bit here about the surfacing. So I'll hold off on the surfacing for a second. Boom, until right here. For your surfacing, I know there's a couple of discussions. One was doing perhaps a portion in this engineered wood fiber right here, wood carpet, 5 bars, a couple of different names. One of the things I'm into that I do heavily are the transition areas. We have a tile such as this that we insert on a sidewalk. This gets sloped down into the ground. You can see right up here, beginning of a tile. This one has to be treated with a, what they call a bonded wood carpet. And then down here, you can see the wood chips are pushed up against that inclined ramp, so you get no lips. This right here, this happens to be a zip line. Zip lines can, my memory serves me right, 70 feet is the limit that we can do in a zip line. So usually they're 40, 50, 60 feet, 70 is the longest. But this right here, this is all a foam resilient pad with a vinyl covering, and that gets sloped down into the wood fiber because we can't have any edges. We don't want anything over 1/2 inch in elevation for ADA, which is we can show you right over here with the rubber tiling, and you can see where if it's rubber tiles or pour in place rubber, it doesn't really matter, same thing. But the unitary tile between the tile and where maybe there's a border edge or a sidewalk, that right there cannot have more than a 1/2 inch gap. It can't have more than a 1/4 inch change in elevation. And when we want to take the wood chips and meet them up with the rubber on either side, what we're going to do is we're going to take that rubber, and that's going to be sloped minimum of 1 to 12. But if you have an exact ADA route of travel, that rubber where it goes into the wood chips will be sloped at 1 in 16, kind of very similar to this right here, where it gets sloped in and you maintain your wood chips to your unitary product. You can't have any edges. When it gets into accessibility and inclusion, the equipment is one thing, but that's not the important stuff. The most important when it comes to access and inclusion is the surfacing. But nobody gets excited about that stuff. That's clearly probably 90% of accessibility has to do with your surfacing. Other than that, you put a ramp on it, you put transfer stations on it, you do ground level play on it, but you got to get to it, around it, touch it, hug it, and the best way to do that is through your surfacing. So in a heartbeat, I have my rocks and ropes, which is solid precast concrete, elephant play, very innovative nuts from Canada. Columbia Cascade, very theme-based product. Fitness, you could do static or dynamic. I'm not a strong advocate of some of the like the cycles, the bicycles, the cycles, and things like you get on and pedal, because hardware only lasts, they're moving parts, they only last 2 years. I do more of the static line. Then our big toys again, very traditional playground equipment, loose fill unitary. You got all the regulatory groups in here. We do outright installation as far as volunteer and volunteer assisted, and I do certified testing on all this stuff. So I've got a very large playground portfolio behind me, but we could do a little bit of everything. That's what you have for your space and your budget. If you're going to do all rubber matting, you'd pretty much double the cost of your equipment. And if you're going to do wood fiber, you probably go about 50% of that cost. That will handle the wood fiber and installation. If you want to have volunteers doing some stuff, there are certain things that volunteers can do. Shoveling wood chips is a great task. So I think that's about 20 minutes. So if you got more for me, what do you got for questions? Anything?
That's good. We actually have a little bit more time because I misread our agenda here from GAP. So we do have a little bit more time. I'm going to open it up to the group and see if there are questions. I actually have one for you, John. So in your experience, and I appreciate the dedication you're providing for inclusivity and making sure that playground equipment as well as workout facilities are usable by all. We obviously provided you with feedback from what residents indicated there was interest in, but I'm curious to get your take on some of the trends that you're seeing in playground material in terms of toys, equipment. What are you seeing that other towns are asking for, and what should we consider in this?
Okay, it depends on who's doing the design work. When it's grassroots design, parents doing it, they tend to do more of the traditional look. When it's a landscape architect doing it, They tend to do things that are very artsy and organic and have a visual appeal. It really depends upon who's designing it. Tell you the truth. The surfacing is probably, if it's grassroots, tends to more be in the line of the engineered wood fiber. And if it's a large municipality, they tend to go the rubber matting because they have a budget to support it. The surfacing is your long-term costs. In 10, 12 years, you're going to replace the rubber. I mean, you just do. But I think the trends that we're seeing are a lot of more ground-based play and more net-based play. Tends to be more and more popular. The preschool playgrounds, early childhood playgrounds tend to be very, very traditional. They don't tend to get into the more artsy, leading, cutting edge type designs. That's typically more for the school age older kids. But I mean, we have play apparatus that are geared for ages 6 months to 23 months if you wanted to do an infant toddler area. Very, very traditional play, very basic, very understandable, very compact.
One additional question, and thank you for that. If we were to look at, if you were to recommend one or two other projects that you've done that aren't in Tiverton, what would you suggest that we look at? What are some places that we should take a look at there?
Yeah, I would certainly locally would be Pierce Beach in Somerset. And again, we also did Ashton Field and Lehigh Field in Somerset, but Pierce Beach is pretty cool. They got school age and early childhood.
Cool.
If you want to go, yeah, I don't think the fast ferry is going to be running out of New Bedford over to the Vineyard this year. I don't think it is. Shillmark Elementary School has an amazing Columbia Cascade timber form design we did last year for them. Up in Belmont, called Pequasset Park in Belmont, Mass. They have a huge natural wood timber form unit. City of Brookline, we got a couple of really nice playgrounds up there. Warren Playground and Waldstein Playground. I think it's recycled plastic pipeline. And there's a beautiful playground we did in Needham, Mass, St. Joseph's School, and they have the precast interlocking tiles. That's a beautiful playground we did up there. Beautiful. Children's Grove Playground in Framingham has got rocks and ropes and timber form. Absolutely gorgeous playground.
Stu, it's Dave. I got a follow-up for him.
Please, Dave, go ahead.
So, John, the Pierce Beach in Swansea, they recently, I believe, redid the Big Red Slide. You're talking about the play structures that are closer to the beach, not the slide, correct?
Yeah, and actually the slide at Pierce Park, they got the Big Red Slide up on the hill. That's being discussed like right now. We got an amazing slide proposed for that. We've been working on that for a couple of years. But just before the red slide, on that side of the parking lot, is the school age big toy. Across the parking lot, a little closer to the water, would be the early childhood big toy. They have
Okay, so both of those were your company?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've got experience with those. My kids have gone there and played there, which is why I asked, because those are older structures. They've been there for a while and they've held up pretty well. My second part of the follow-up was the one at Pequasset School. That too, again, for my kids playing there, that's held up pretty well. I don't believe there's any issues with paint over there at all. And I would echo Adam's concern, being a seaside community, that we don't want this stuff rusting up or getting damaged too quickly. So.
And I don't know any other manufacturer that does the salt water treatments that we do. It's very specialized.
So I'm sorry, John, what manufacturer was it specifically that does the coastal feature?
Big toys.
Big toys. Okay.
Yeah. And for
All right,
if we were to do a Columbia Cascade, I would specify stainless steel hardware.
Yep.
John, and I apologize because this is not a space that I live in from a material standpoint, but can you talk a little bit about what differentiates coastal materials from, somebody who's inland?
Well, no, the coastal material it's just a paint process, and actually I can send you specs on it if you'd like, but it's a coating that goes onto the metal, and then it goes through the powder coating process.
Understood.
So there's
it reduces oxidization, if I'm correct, right, John?
That's it.
It reduces oxidization on the metal, between the metal and the coating and the paint.
Yep. It's expensive, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it definitely is.
I mean, we have big toys. We have playground equipment right on the ocean. But I want to go back to Pierce Beach for a second. When were you at Pierce Beach? How long ago? Just in the last couple of years? Or are you talking several years? Whoops, I can't hear David.
There we go. Sorry about that. I didn't realize I muted. I want to say within the last 4 years, we were down there. So again, I don't know if that equipment has been replaced since, or if that's been there for a while.
Yeah, no, that's been replaced. That was 2 years ago. We took out all of the old children's playground that was there and put in the new big toys. That was 2 years ago. But the red slide is on the table. They love their red slide in Somerset.
Perfect. All right,
John,
cool. Thank you.
Sorry, Dave.
Nope, that's okay. I was just thanking him. Thanks. Shout out him.
I had asked Chris this earlier, John. Maybe you have an idea too. What's the ratio for volunteer help to, for assembly to, supply or assembly that we're going to need, or professional assembly assistance that we'll need for this playground equipment?
Well, every manufacturer is a little bit different. And as far as percentages are concerned. But as a rule of thumb, if you budget about 40% of the material price, it's pretty much going to cover the installation, typically.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, maybe that question might have been proposed wrong. So the assembly of the playground, are we talking about needing to pay for 75% of the assembly, or can we do 75% of the assembly on our own and save some money?
You can do
Roughly.
the entire assembly on your own. We can also get you a price to have someone to come in to do some technical supervisions.
Okay.
But one of the trends that we have seen in the last probably 7-8 years is fewer and fewer community volunteer installations doing hardware. Doing some of the smaller independent things is one thing. Installing the wood fiber, the border edges, picnic tables, benches, stuff like that. But for example, some of those big nets that we have, not even going to come close to doing anything with volunteers with that stuff. The liability is just too damn high.
I'm sorry, what was it? I missed that. You broke up.
If we're doing something like a very large,
the liability. Okay, all right. I'm sorry.
The liability is too much. They'll decline it. But the big stuff, it's tough. It's heavy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the recycled plastic timbers is heavy. Heavy. Now, if you want to do something like rocks and ropes and you want to bring down your prices quite a bit, you're going to find somebody local who's got a small crane.
Yeah, we need some machinery. Yeah,
absolutely. Offload the trucks and put it in that. And you guys can practically self-install the rocks and ropes yourselves. I think there's only 2 concrete footings in that entire thing for rocks and ropes. Hard part is get a crane.
Yep.
Get a crane, get an operator. You can put that stuff in for pennies. So, but we'll tell you which equipment. There's some equipment we will not allow a supervision. We got a lot of equipment that we will allow for supervision. Okay. Back in the early 90s, we did a lot of supervisions. But I'm going to tell you, last 10 years, the quality of volunteers has gone downhill. It's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. It's a little frustrating, but the others, a lot of towns won't even allow it. A lot of towns won't allow it. So they put in the wood chips.
So just from a numerical standpoint, when we submitted the grant, we accounted on a 40% cost for installation. So it's interesting to hear you say that number. I think, per usual, Josh is on point with what we included. So I think also to Adam's point, any place where we could leverage the expertise we have in town to help bring down costs. We are fortunate. Tiverton has a lot of really skilled labor and people that care greatly about what we do. And I think there's going to be a balance in there somewhere.
Well, but historically, the reason why you do a volunteer assisted installation, saving money is one thing, but that's just getting the community intimately involved in it. I mean, there's a lot of emotion factor that goes in with it as well.
No, I totally understand that. We're coming up to the end of our time, so I didn't know if you had any particular questions for us.
No, I really don't. I mean, I'd be more than delighted to sit down with a mask face to face and do some design work for you. The one thing that we do and we pride ourselves in, we're not one manufacturer that says our stuff's the best. I got a lot of different options here, a lot of different options, a lot of different materials, a lot of different looks, traditional, cutting edge, theme-based, plastic, wood, metal. We have a lot of options, and I kind of like that. This is my 31st year doing this stuff, so I'll do whatever you guys need me to do. We're pretty quick at it.
I have one question. If
Sure.
we were to have our public works department do the excavation and put in the foundational materials, could you provide them with the foundation material that you'd be looking for, like for the, like how much gravel, how much dense grade, how much?
Oh, no, absolutely. And I would be on site. I do a lot of jobs where the local municipality does all of their own site work, but I get on site and I go over and the site plans are there, the measurements are there, the calculations are there, the grades are there, elevations are there. I go over every single bit of that stuff for these folks. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
I have a quick question, Stu.
Please.
John, how many people or how many kids are the Somerset Pierce Beach 2 playgrounds rated? And when they rate them, is that for the kids on them at one time? Because when I've looked, some of the ratings seem to be high, or is that the kids that are also in around the playground?
Yeah, it's a very, very subjective calculation. I've always gone with about 45 square feet per kid. So you figure out what the square footage is, and that's how much including the safety zones, about 45 square feet per kid. Little kids, about 30 square feet. The school age at Pierce, probably 75, probably 75 kids.
Is that for each one, John?
No, it's for the school age. The little one over at Pierce, there's 2 playgrounds there. They got an old preschool unit there. Those are probably 25 kids each.
Thank you.
They're not very big. Not very big. It's very, some of the play structures are very, very, it seems a little misleading because some structures are very spread out. If you're doing ramps and platforms, it's very spread out, takes up a lot of space, but they also have what we call our treehouse designs, which go straight up. So it doesn't take a very big thumbprint. So you're going to say, geez, that's a small thumbprint, but that's geared for 80 kids. What's going on? That's because there's elevated play, different stages, different levels.
Thank you.
Sure thing. So what do I got to do now? Do I hit stop share, then I'm done?
Tell you what, I will stop you from sharing. Look at that.
You're gonna
That sounds really wrong, but
yeah.
John, I want to thank you again for taking time to go through this with us. Really appreciate learning a little bit more about you and what you guys do and the experience you have. Thanks also for navigating this unusual environment. And at this particular point, as I said sort of at the beginning, as motorcycles go flying by, We're in a spot where we have not signed the DEM grant paperwork yet because we haven't received it. So we're very much still in a fact-finding mode, and we'll be back in touch with you as this project progresses.
Okie doke.
Awesome.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. So the next up, I'm going to admit in the folks from Coleman. We'll give them a second.
Compan.
Compan. Thank you. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Compan. A long day on my end. So they're connecting their audio right now. Give them a second. All right.
How do you keep that desk so nice and neat, Stu?
It's a matter of knowing I had a meeting tonight. How's that for an answer? You can't see what's on the other side of it. All right. So Tiffany and Jay, I see you both in here, and Jeff as well, if I'm correct. So you guys are muted at the moment. So here I can, you should have the ability to unmute yourself, but.
Hi, good evening. This is Jay Cook. Very nice to meet with everybody.
Hey, thank you guys for being here.
Good evening, everybody.
You've connected with Josh before. My name's Stu. I'm the Rec Commission Chair. You guys have the ability to share, I believe. So we're going to turn it over to you to tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you see as a vision for Town Farm.
Absolutely. Thanks, Stu. So this is Jeff Hochwater. I am I'm the local sales representative in Rhode Island and Southeastern Massachusetts. And on behalf of Compan, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to present to you the design and concept that we've come up with tonight. And also congratulate you and the town of Tiverton in the investment that you're looking to make and making, for the community. So on the Skype, on the Zoom tonight, we have myself, Jay Cook, who has introduced himself briefly. He's the Vice President of Sales for Compan. And we also have Tiffany Tiberio, who is our lead designer and very local. And we are lucky to have her to work with for projects like this. So Tiffany is going to take us through a good majority of the concept and design that we've worked on. And you can obviously see the initial screen has already generated. I believe, just so we're all clear, I believe we're going to save about 10 minutes or so for some questions and answer at the end.
Yes, please. So you have about 30 minutes and then 10 minutes for questions at the end. And some folks may ask questions in between as they come up.
Perfect. That's completely fine. So, all right. So with that, I will hand it over to Tiffany.
All right. Hello. Let me just get this. All right. So everyone's able to see my screen and see that I've changed, right? I want to make sure you can see my mouse moving too. I'm kind of, I'm Portuguese, almost like Italian. They talk with their hands. So if you can see the mouse, that's kind of like seeing my hands pointing at things. All right, great. So here we have the project summary. We really appreciated the extensive town survey that was given to us. It really helped us to piece together what we think or hope will be exactly what the town is looking for. I've added these little tick marks because you can see, tried to get absolutely everything that was wanted in there. There's a few things that I wasn't really sure what they were, like Fit City, not really sure, but generally I think we've got a nice variety in here, and we were actually able to incorporate two themes for the two separate age groups. So for the younger age group, we did a farm barn theme, and for the older ones, we did this forest nature theme. So we'll go through a little bit of that. I'm actually local, so I'm quite familiar with Tiverton. I'm from Bristol, so we used to go to Tiverton all the time to go to get Gray's ice cream before they moved into Bristol. But beautiful town, and I'm excited to be working on the project. So we have just a site plan here, just an overview. I'm sure everyone's familiar with the site by now, but just to show where the two playgrounds, where the playground and the fitness are located, and that they're kind of on the boundary of this walking path. This is kind of an overhead shot of what the playground we're proposing is and how it sits in relationship to the parking and to the ball fields. And the way that they're broken down, we've got the age groups where the 2 to 5 is kind of clustered in this area. The 5 to 12 kind of spans and wraps around. And then the swings, of course, are kind of mixed age group is clustered over here. So this kind of gives you the first overview of the playground. I'll just go through all the components. So for the 2 to 5 area, we've actually got a nice fun tractor seesaw, a big barn play tower, a little spinner bowl here, and tucked behind the tower is a little seesaw, which I'll show a little bit later. Then for the 5 to 12, you can see the larger kind of hero, what we call hero structure in the middle is this double tree tower. It's located close to the road, or closest to the road, so it's nice and visible from the street. And we have our nice supporting features with the spica and the supernova carousel. Also the boulder climb, this kind of suspension arch bridge, and then a nice variety of swings. And you can see we're using a combination of surfaces. So we have the engineered wood fiber and also this rubber pip path, which is going to allow us to give some better access to the key play components and where there is a lot of movement where the mulch could eventually wear away. So requiring a little less maintenance over time. So just diving into the 2 to 5 area first, we have that tractor you can see nice up and close, a very inclusive piece as it can fit many children inside of it. It's also got this nice open back and parents can stand in the back with their kids in the middle and make it rock back and forth so that it really feels like they're on turbulent ground. There's lots of nice shifters and manipulators on the tractor itself. Also a little lift here where you can pretend to put gas into the sides. We have our spinner bowl here, and then the kind of 2 to 5 hero structure, which is the barn. We'll go into that a little bit more. So there's this nice double slide here, which is connected very closely to the ADA stair. This is purposeful. So a child who is restricted to a mobility device can actually join their caretaker up to the top and slide side by side with their caretaker and quickly return to the chair. We also have this nice mini springer here, which has, you can see, nice side supports. So a child is getting, who might have some trunk stability issues, is very supported on the sides, on the back, has good hand and feet support so that they can make that springer rock. From this perspective, you can see this curly climber. It's a little hard to understand how that works until you see a child using it. So I'll show this video here. So you can see that central pole allows the children to easily hold on while their legs are spinning around. It gives them nice support from below. So a child who does have some stability issues is able to ride this a little bit better than your normal sliding pole. And Compan has designed this in a way that no other can really copy, in that it's scaled proportionately to work properly with a child sliding down like that. On the barn, you can see we have designed the panels to be transparent in places, but also themed with this barn style. And we have this nice musical play panel, which can be played on both sides. This is important for parallel play. And it's also allowing to be underneath the deck, where we're going to have a nice, comfortable, quiet space for children who need a little bit of a retreat, who might want a little bit, or who might be overstimulated. And then we also have this nice calming hammock here and an additional slide. There's also some little creatures to discover along the way, some chickens and chicks and hens and nests. Then moving into the 5 to 12 area, here you can see that large suspension arch bridge. So this nice large coconut rope has a nice texture to it. So it's kind of a sensory experience. I love the ends of it have this kind of textured, tasseled, soft component to it, as these are a series of polyester woven around steel core cables. And you can see that there's kind of obstacles that the kids have to go up, down, and over and climb through. And it's also a place where they can sit and hang out and kind of watch, as this is almost a stage for them. We also have, we're taking that box on getting the vertical climbing with this block structure here. The children are able to climb to a really high point if they'd like to, but there's also the ability to climb in lower areas. And it's always a nice, fun seat for resting area in the middle as well. Here in the foreground, you can see our Supernova. This is our #1 selling piece in the world. It's a carousel, and you can see some older kids standing on it here. It's really challenging for children who are standing, but it's also a nice and easy ride for someone who might lay down and circle around with their playmates. It can also fit many children at one time. You can see the speaker here in the background of this girl riding. There's only one shown here, but we do have a video showing 7 girls on it at one time. So it can incorporate many children at one time. And it's also a nice experimental feature where as the children pull themselves into the pole, they're going to speed up. And as they let themselves out, they slow down. So they learn a little bit about centrifugal forces and how to control that. On the tower, you can see that we have 2 main structures that are connected by a bridge. And on the one side, we have sliding pole. On this side, you can see we have another one of those curly climbers, but it's a little bit taller. We have these bubble windows for peering out, lots of graphics on the facades. And this is just adjacent to our double zip line, which is one of the largest ones in the industry. It also has the 2 side by side, so we're allowing children to be competitive, which keeps them to continue to play and to race each other and use the structure more than 1 or 2 times. Then this perspective here, just letting you see that big spiral slide, which I know was important to the community. It's also demonstrating this bridge and lots of different ways for climbing up. We have this vertical climbing net and just a nice variety of levels of complexity. So the children can play, the way that we say is they play up, so they play to their ability, and there's increasing challenges. So if they're no longer interested in just kind of walking across this bridge, they could also climb on the outsides. They could climb from underneath like a monkey bar. And there's lots of little creatures for them to discover along the way. These panels that we're using here that are showing very transparent, they're high quality polycarbonate that are a thick, a little bit more than 1/2 inch. They have a graphic that's printed on it that in a special way that prevents vandalism and is UV stabilized. We're able to really customize this in any way that you would want if you're not in love with the look here, or if there's a creature that you would rather have instead of one of the ones we have shown, we can easily swap it out. We can also put the town logo on here. We could do sponsorship, anything like that we can incorporate on these panels. And then this just showing another perspective that there's another means of access with this net here. And then you're also just able to see these kind of smaller climbers that are getting us to the top. And again, we're always taking advantage of the undersides of our structure so that we are providing play underneath. There's play panels. Here's a little finger maze. And it's also, again, a place to escape some of the action that's happening around them. So now moving into the fitness, this is the overview. It's cradled between that walking path and the ball fields and then the tennis courts here. I've set it up in a way that we're creating the potential for this loop here, which could be an obstacle course. It could be used, you know, sort of, I know Ninja Warrior was mentioned quite a bit. That's quite popular right now. And it could be used in a way that could be raced and timed. It could also be used as individual stations. And I thought it was an important feature to incorporate an area that could be designated specifically for senior fitness, but it's also incorporated sort of into the rest of the design, so it's not necessarily segregated. You can see here some of these pieces, my favorite here being the double turbo twister challenge. I'll show a video of that later just to show you just how difficult that is. And really it's a loop. So there could be a beginning and end wherever the users are deciding. These poles, you can decide to go over the shorter one and under the tall one, or vice versa. It can then kind of walk on their hands across the parallel bars, or try to run down the incline bench, which could also be used for leg lifts or sit-ups. This leads to a few steps here that are at different elevations. This one's really high at 32 inches. It's going to be the most challenging to jump up to. It's going to be for those users that are looking for a challenge when they're using doing standing squats and things. There's also a lower one here, which is in close adjacency to the senior fitness, so that they're able to do step ups with less challenge. It then connects to a few senior items that I'll show a little bit later, but this structure here, which is a combination of pieces, that a user could choose to stay off the ground and try to make their way across, and then brings us to the balance beams, which you can see are made of a variety of materials and textures, different widths, so that the user is constantly being challenged. This just calling out some of those elements. So you can see the turbo challenge leading over, under, incline bench. There's the steps. You can see the difference in height from this angle. You can also see this feature here, which I wrongly labeled DoubleTree Tower. And this is our balancing station. I'll show some photos of it a little bit later that kind of help you to understand what's going on there. And we also have the flex wheel. Then this leads into our combination circuit, which I'll show in a little more detail here. So you can see we've incorporated quite a bit in this one structure, where we have a vertical net, some monkey bars, some stretching bars, but we also have this kind of potential here for users to be facing each other and challenging each other, motivating each other. This structure here can be used for stretching, but it's also great for using it at different levels to have for push-ups or push-ups with your hands, or you can loop your feet on it and do push-ups. And again, here, the two different level bars to do the same thing. Here's just showing the other angle, so you can see that there's numerous bar heights. So we have 3 different bar heights at the lower level, and then 2 different bar heights at the upper level. And then, of course, the monkey bars and the net. The net located here near the senior fitness, so they're able to either practice climbing a bit or to just use it as a stretching area. So here's some photos to show you a little bit better what's going on. So this flex wheel, it's really important for seniors to keep stretching themselves and testing their flexibility. And then here showing that balancing station. There, she's standing here with her hand off to the side, because there's actually 2 nodes where they can hit from one side and to the other. There's also 2 at the lower end, so that's making them move up and down and across. This showing the steps and the variety of heights and how it's using, how the different users can approach it, having a variety of challenge. This doing the over under, him obviously choosing the more challenging means of going over the taller one. This photo here showing the women all facing each other and challenging each other to keep holding their legs up. Then this kind of demonstrating the balance beam and the different textures. Here again, the turbo challenge. And then, of course, we're all familiar with the monkey bars. It's important to note that these little, there on each of the structures, there is a little icon here, which actually allows you to scan with a QR code with your cell phone. And you can be brought to a trainer or a video that gives you examples or shows videos on how to use that piece and different exercises that you can do on that structure. So it's almost like having a virtual trainer there with you. Then this just is a video. Gets me a little bit motion sick at first, but to show you just how challenging this piece is. I mean, this man is very tall and got very long arms, so it's a bit easier for him to traverse from one side to the other, but these rings all individually spin and can go in either direction. So a person could actually hold on and keep spinning, or try to make their way from one side to the other without touching the ground. I'll briefly go through these local references. So one project that was really important to me I worked on was Brandon's Beach in Providence. It's right downtown. It's pretty much Providence only green space, right next to the ice rink and at Burnside Park. That's located down here. You're welcome to go visit it at any hour. You'll see children or adults or college students playing on it. Then we have some nice fitness example for you over at Corliss Park. That's over in Providence. Quite a bit to see there. A lot of the same features we've incorporated into your design. And another one that's not too far is in Fall River. And this one has, again, a lot of play features that we've incorporated in yours. But in all of them, you can see that they've got different themes, different concepts, and the different equipment and feelings in each of them. So definitely setting Tiverton's design apart. So I'll let Jeff take over. Jeff, you're muted.
Yeah, I was just trying to unmute myself. So yeah, and even on that last slide, guys, that's just a synopsis of, obviously the area that we cover and some of the playgrounds that we do have. And, when you think about Providence, Cranston, we have multiple parks in both those locations. And usually in the areas that we do have some parks, it's there's more than one, there's multiple, like I said, and we are always offering, if you ever wanted to be led on a tour of some of the local playgrounds, we can certainly go ahead and schedule something and kind of take you through if you wanted to visit them, with us. So that's always an option to keep in mind too. So, so just wanted to throw that in there. Thanks. You want to flip that? Yeah. Thanks. So, all right, perfect. So we understand that, what we've been, as I've talked to Josh, we understand there's this $475,000 budget. As you can see, this is, we've developed a full turnkey solution, including project management, products, installation, surfacing, and they all will fit very nicely into your budget. Everything that we've taken you through today thus far. I'd love to understand and maybe just even hear from you guys, just maybe some first impressions, if you have any, what you liked or just some initial thoughts thus far, as far as where we are from the presentation perspective.
Can you describe the materials used?
Sure. I'll bring us into this appendix. It's going to help me show some of our materials a little bit closer up. So our ropes are unlike any other. We have a steel core with polyester wrapping, and it's got cables that are wrapping around this steel core. And then we're inductively heating this, which is something that we've patented. This allows the strands or prevents the strands from unraveling and gives a nice tight bond. Our structures also use, which not shown in this image, an S-clamp or the double S-clamp hooks. This allows us to have a really finite and nice looking connection, but it also lets us replace a single strand of rope if anything ever is to happen. We have all of our connections are on our steel structures. Let's start with the steel. The steel is always hot dip galvanized. If there is a coloring, it's first hot dip galvanized and then powder coated. All of our connections are with aluminum parts or stainless steel. And you can see the warranties on those components here. This just showing some of the materials we use, like the membrane, this rubber seating. It's very similar to the seats that we use on our swings. It's in the black and it's very durable. And it has this actual steel core running through that supports either side, so that it's a very strong component. Our foundations, I don't know if you guys want to jump in, Jeff, on some of these details. I know you kind of go through.
Yeah, I will, Tiffany.
Products. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, and so I think where Tiffany started is what we really take a lot of pride in. We have an extreme material difference with our material specifications, what we use in the core cord rope, which in that top left picture is just one example where we actually have that patented difference, which is really, really important to us, and it prevents stretching as well. So with many net or say rope products that are in the marketplace, they actually require constant retentioning. And with Compan, with I'll say 90% of our rope solutions, there's no retention required. And with something called a space net, which is kind of common in the industry, it was our original design. We retention that once after about 6 months after its first installation. That's it for the lifetime of the product. So as you're thinking through materials, I'm sure you're thinking through maintenance and durability. And then just, I think another 2 points I touch on quickly here is, when we talk about hot dip galvanized, that's a huge differentiator in the marketplace, because we're taking steel, we're dipping it in a zinc bath, we're then coating the inside of the steel and the outside of the steel. We get a metallurgical bond between the zinc and the steel. So it's really not a coating. It's not something that you rub off. So we then in turn can very comfortably give you a lifetime warranty on the steel. Additionally, we have what we call hardy coastal coating for consideration if we're closer to saltwater environments, which is very, very important too. Lastly, when we talk about materials and material specifications, we're really trying to, on the one hand, complement the low to no maintenance, but on the other hand, we really want to make sure that we're providing an intense play experience. And so as a for instance, as you'll find in probably most of the designs that you see as you've been going through this process, spinning is going to be relevant in any design. Spinning is actually a really, really important developmental opportunity for children. It's how we actually train our inner air balance. It's our vestibular system that we train. So when we were all younger, we made ourselves dizzy. We rolled down hills. We pretended we were a helicopter. You kind of were having fun playing, but you actually had this innate, inherent need to actually train your inner air balance. So all of Compan spinning items are supported by a stainless steel encased, lifetime lubricated electric motor quality ball bearing that Jeff Hawkwater is showing right now. And so electric motor quality just means that it's low to no friction. So if you took that and put it near your ear and spun it, you're not going to hear anything. But the other nice piece about being electric motor quality is that you get an intense spinning reality. So we could take some of our items, literally go like this, let's say like a spinner bowl, or one of the speakers that Tiffany was showing in the bottom right-hand corner, and they will spin for a long, long time. Literally, we've timed it out like 4 minutes. So you have that maintenance advantage where it's lifetime lubricated, stainless steel encased, and then you have that extreme play benefit where you get a great spinning experience. And you also, because of the durability and I'm going to say the density of what Jeff was just showing, you can have a lot of kids getting together and enjoying these spinning items. So there's really a lot of thought at Compan in our research and our choice of materials. So
there's also the HDPE, Jay.
Yeah, an HDPE is a high density polyethylene, which is going to be a common material in the marketplace, but our HDPE actually has the most recycled content and is fully recyclable after its lifespan. It also carries a lifetime warranty. And what's really clever about it, allows us to do a lot of designing, as you see in these images that Tiffany showed. And that's another proprietary product that we've developed in the industry.
Tiffany, I do have a question for you. And again, thank you all for presenting on this. This is really interesting to kind of see what you guys do and your thoughts on this proposal. From an inclusivity standpoint, in watching and looking at some of the images, one of the things that I'm always looking for is, if I am a child or an individual in a wheelchair, how do I access as much of the playground as possible? And so there were some places where I noticed that, I believe on one of the lower levels, there was a particular example that you had used in the graphic. But I'm wondering if you could talk to us a little bit about how you choose within the design, what areas you can make accessible or inclusive. So on a vertical design, I guess specifically my question is here, does that preclude somebody who's in a wheelchair from being able to engage? I know on the barn section, you talked about with a caregiver being able to go up, but in looking at the main structure, is that something that would be accessible or could be modified to be accessible for an individual in a chair?
Sure. So Compan does, we do have ramp systems and we do utilize those. They do come at a cost, of course. And Compan takes an approach which I've really appreciated through the years, in that we're not providing necessarily structures that are specifically for one user type. We like to provide structures that have what we say play for all. So something for everyone to do, but maybe not necessarily they can do everything. But all of our structures, well, the playground as a whole is ADA compliant. And all of these upper level decks on these two play structures or towers do have platforms which can be attained through transfer system. And we do have other things like the seesaws, for example, which are designed in a way that are nice and spacious to allow a user to get into it and use it with their peers. So that's something that's really important to me personally. I grew up with my cousin, almost grew up like a sister with me, and she has some learning disabilities. And it's not necessarily about having her do everything I was doing. I was a gymnast, so of course she couldn't do everything I did, but she was just happy to be doing something with me. So long as we're providing opportunities where they can approach the equipment. So we've done that. We've providing this PIP port in place pathway. And so long as they're able to get there and to be feeling like they're surrounded by the play, that's something that's really important to Compan. And of course, I incorporate that into all of our designs.
Yeah, I want to add to that a little bit. It's a great question because we are always engaged in that conversation, accessibility versus inclusivity. The two separate things, right? And ADA compliance is the bar as it should be. And so any play design that Compan develops is going to be ADA compliant. It's just what we'll do. But when Tiffany's talking about play for all, it's play from all sides. It's transparency. It's access at ground level, as well as if you have elevated play, ground level play, and we have very strict standards that we go by in terms of the count of activities, so that there's an equity to it as well. But at the end of the day, we think through when we're talking about inclusive design, it's, there can be a developmental difference in mobility, but as well, there's challenge that we don't necessarily recognize, right? There's cognitive challenge, a developmental difference, there's vision, there's hearing, there's sensory, there's so many other things to consider. So we try to take an approach in design that we don't actually have these visual call-outs that really say, okay, that's an adaptation. I am restricted to that, or that's not for me. It's something that we're really, really careful about. And an example I would use, Tiffany, could you go back to the picture of, let's say, the supernova as an example? So this might help us illustrate the concept that we're talking about a bit. So that is the ring in the bottom right-hand corner. And so in this particular illustration, we do see two children playing. What we don't know is their abilities. We do see that they can stand and they're balancing, but what else is really going on there? But also with this piece, you see that you can approach it from any point. So that's the play from all sides that we talk about. You also don't need to stand on this. And so let's say that you have some developmental differences, and there we go. And your opportunity is actually to use the strengths that you do have, which would be like, hey, I can lie on this. I can hold on to this. My friend can actually push, vice versa. And you'll start to see kids playing with this in a very different way. But at no point is there this call out that, hey, this is an adaptation to accommodate. And that's what we don't want to do, even though there's an absolute inherent accommodation in here. And this is just one example of many. And I think I'd also just take the opportunity to say that what we presented here today, for certain, is a concept. And we fully expect that, although we're saying, hey, here's a fully turnkey budget, fully turnkey project that fits within your budget, that respects the survey, which was great because that engagement was very helpful for us. We expect that the design is going to change. And it's going to change based upon more input from this committee or other stakeholders. And that's where we can fine tune the solution, so that maybe we want more pieces similar to the supernova that we can actually demonstrate and illustrate that this is why this is truly inclusive.
Thank you for that. And I think we fully acknowledge that this is not, if this was the design we went with, this wouldn't be the all end all. Just right. One of those things that popped up a flag.
Yeah, and like Tiffany said too, when we have universal design principles as well that we developed years ago. And as a matter of fact, Compan was a leading company way back when, in the late 80s, that helped design playground principles for ADA access. So as far as ramps go, we look at that in this way, it's a special solution for a special need. And then you really have to weigh the community, the user group, the location, and start to think about, hey, maybe that's an appropriate solution for a portion of the playground. And that's where we really look to have that accommodation. But we would never want that to be the whole playground for all these things that we just talked about. So we make sure that it's the right balance of opportunity. So ultimately, we get an inclusive environment.
Thank you.
I like to use the zip line. That was one of the more popular things at the old playground. I'm not sure if you looked at the history, but that was always the highlight of the old playground. There was a single zip line. That's a nice touch, though. I think that's getting popular.
Yeah, and that double zip line spans what, 122 feet, right, Tiffany? That's
from bumper to bumper is 100 feet.
Yeah.
And that's
Okay,
actually
100
why
feet.
we had to expand the footprint of the playground, was to incorporate the full spans of that zip line. We can reduce it if we need to, but really we wanted to get the most in there as that we could, because obviously the longer the play, the more the thrill.
Yeah, I think you'll see a lot of people in town that will be nostalgic for a piece like that.
Yeah, that's terrific, Chris. And, you know, the double is just such a nice added social component. And this is where you'll actually see, you know, folks get together and start to help each other as well. And then you see the, you know, the game rules starting to shape up, you know, the teaming, all those things. And, you know, speaking back to the engineering as well, because this is so long, we need that cable to stay very taut. And so we look at these end pieces, you'll see that they're engineered in a way that gives us that kind of extreme difference from one stanchion to the next. So intensely durable, which is very, very important in this, because we do notice that when we have the space to incorporate a zip line, it is heavily used, and therefore it really needs to be low to no maintenance.
Nice.
I just want to say I really appreciate you definitely took the time to really dive into the survey, because all the components I'm seeing are what everyone was asking for. And again, the zip line was super important to a lot of people. It's very nostalgic to us.
Yeah, that was kind of the first thing I put in there. And then right away I said to Jeff, I need to expand this site. We can't fit in a zip line.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a good one.
And that's a difference too. Like that length is really important because think about play through time. You know, you want to have some thrill and you want to have some holding power so if they want to use it again. And if you have a shorter distance, it's like, okay, I mastered that, I'm done. So it really needs to be an engaging piece. And that's why we have such a strong distance.
Just a couple more minutes here. Any other questions from the commission?
There was one more seat I didn't show in a photo, but or point out really. We have, I know that this was really important. It was on there maybe 3 or 4 times on the survey in different ways, but Compan has the You and Me seat, which has an infant. This photo is showing a little bit different seat. So we do have some options where this could actually be 2 users playing side by side. And, but we also have the potential for the infant and the mother, which is always important to have that eye-to-eye contact while they're swinging. And which I really love is there we have an example there. And of course the seats are flexible. We can change them up. We have these anti-wrap solutions and I'm trying to find this one with the
Tiffany, while you're there,
we go.
Yeah.
That's the one with the
You're
bucket
talking
seat.
basket.
That's awesome. Yeah,
and of
the
course,
basket swing too, if you go back to that.
You kid.
Sure. Oh, well, I'll show one with children on it.
Great.
So
Great.
large capacity on this basket seat. Again, another piece that we use for inclusion.
Yeah.
A user can actually leave their device, have plenty of space to hold on to. We like the net structure. It provides plenty of hand support. And you can see we can have many children riding together at the same time.
This is another great example of, you know, inclusive, because you can interact with this in so many different ways. And this is a way to get the kids together. It's where kids learn empathy as well. They'd actually help someone that needed a little bit more support. And, you know, for us, if we were able to influence the design, and we're talking about, you know, swing bays and the bays where you have the seats, we're fairly, we're strong advocates for this basket swing versus what's called in the industry an ADA seat. An ADA seat is just, you know, a seat that has an adaptation for a single user. And we really feel like the miss with that versus the basket swing, which can be used in so many different ways, is that the ADA seat really is specific to, you know, a certain user. And if we talk about developmental differences, that seat may be absolutely useless for someone that does have a developmental difference, but maybe has rigidity and can't sit in it, or has another challenge that they're dealing with. And so we try to, you know, champion the basket swing as often as we can, because it's truly adaptive without that visual, again, that visual stipulation.
And we have the rubber bumpers on there, and it's extremely durable, whereas these ADA seats, they tend to get damaged quite often because of misuse for children who are not using it appropriately. In this way, we have a seat that is very inclusive and is going to be very durable over a long period of time. Okay. Do we have any other other questions?
Feedback, Jennifer. I couldn't see the name in the Zoom at first.
Yeah. I think it's a great presentation. Looks like a really nice flow to it. And I think it's going to fit in that area really well. You guys did a nice job. Thanks.
Thank you.
It's a great job.
Thanks. Kind of wish it was in person. I don't like doing things online, but we'll get there, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah. Again, thank you guys for taking the time to do this again. Unique environment. As I've mentioned, everybody else, we haven't signed the paperwork with the DEM yet. We're excited to get going on this project when we can. And so I have no doubt we'll be back in touch with you guys. But thank you very much for showing us your thought and your concept for this. Really appreciate the time and effort you put into it. So
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the time. And it's we have that appendix in there for you so you can go a little bit deeper into design values, process, some other things that you're probably going to want to know about.
Definitely.
Have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks
for the
everyone.
opportunity.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Cool. We'll give that a minute to sort out. Hey, you guys holding up? We good?
Doing good.
All right. Nobody needs to do a lap around the building? We're good?
I thought Chris fell asleep once or twice, but it was just his eyes.
Hang in there. All right. So
Looking sideways.
I'm letting in Megan from Emmy O'Brien and Sons. And we'll connect in a second here. Hey, Megan, you are in the meeting. Let us know if you can hear us. You're on mute at the moment, but I think you can unmute yourself. Joys of Zoom.
Hello?
Oh, excuse me.
Hi there.
Hi. Mike Fingeroth, East Coast Regional Manager with Landscape Structures. Megan?
How are you?
Hey, nice to see you guys. Let's run my camera here.
All right. Hi, Megan. You're still on mute, by the way. I don't know if you're trying to talk to us.
Got it. Sorry.
No,
Everyone.
no worries. Awesome.
I'm
Well,
Megan O'Brien from O'Brien and Sons.
thank you guys for both being here. I will again keep it really short. Megan, we've had the pleasure of meeting. I said Mike.
Yes.
Mike. Apologies, I haven't had a chance to meet you before, but thank you both for being here and taking some time to tell us about your thoughts for Town Farm. And with that, I'm happy to turn it over to you if you want to screen share. And
Beautiful. So do we have the ability to share a screen?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
So Mike is going to share his screen and we will take turns going back and forth. Okay.
Do you guys see?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay.
Else?
Yep, you're all set.
All right, awesome. Thank you. So thank you guys for allowing us to present tonight. Again, I'm Megan O'Brien. I'm the president of O'Brien and Sons. O'Brien and Sons has been in business for 91 years, and I have with me today Mike Fingeroth of Landscape Structures. Mike has been with Landscape Structures for 13 years in sales development role all over the East Coast. I've worked with him the whole time of that tenure. And I have been at O'Brien and Sons for 22 years, and we have had the honor of solely representing landscape structures in the New England states since 1983. So we have a presentation obviously today. One of the things I wanted to preface that presentation with is rather than come in here and present a drawing or a design, we decide to take a different tact. I want to preface that the intention of our presentation is to give you a very broad overview of our capabilities. Some things won't be what you envision in your space or in colors that you would ever find palatable for your particular town, farm, recreation area, but the idea is to keep an open mind and see all the possibilities of what Landscape Structures and O'Brien and Sons can do for you in creating an amazing, unique space in Tiverton. So again, we've been in business since 1929. I am third generation. My grandfather started the company. We are a women business enterprise registered in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have 20 employees, and we're one of the oldest. We are the oldest and largest of our kind. We also have an in-house designer. We've had an in-house designer for approximately 19 years at O'Brien and Sons, and it really does help us to, set the bar high and to, offer unique capabilities that a lot of companies cannot do. So having a designer is an amazing experience to be able to sit down with clients, do a Zoom meeting like this, to get super fast information and designs out the door. We were also the Landscape Structures Rep of the Year for 2016, which was an amazing accomplishment since that is an entire global, they have a global rep network. So that was a really great accomplishment for us to be named their Rep of the Year. So I like to talk, that's okay. I like to talk about this particular thing before we go on. There are a lot of different choices, as you all know. And when we opened our doors, we wanted to make sure, there were a lot of choices when we were designing playgrounds back in the 70s and 80s with lots of different companies that we could align with. But we chose to align ourselves with highest quality products across the board. And being sort of as old as we are and having tenure and longevity that we do, we've had a lot of power in representing the best companies out there, and having such long-standing relationships shows that our alignment is really strong, and that we very proudly distribute the companies that we do, and Landscape Structures obviously is one of those. And like it says there, we've been representing them for over 38 years, and we have a very tight relationship.
So I'll talk a little bit about Landscape Structures and at least, what makes us unique. So Landscape Structures, we've been in business since around 1971. Our founder was a landscape architect. So we kind of created the company based on a process called continuous play. As the company kind of grew and started, expanding and getting into different materials and different types of styles of play, we eventually became an employee-owned company. One of the things that our owners, our founders of the company did was they sold the employees the company, which doesn't seem like a very big deal. However, there's a really large sense of empowerment amongst the employees. Most of the stuff that we have in-house comes from employee ideas. We have a Kaizen process of continuous improvement. So if anything goes wrong ever, we have a team of people that looks at it, fixes the process, and what you have today is a really fast turnaround time with a really great product. Just to give you an idea, I've been with the Landscape Structures family. I worked with the company that Landscape Structures bought. They bought them back in 2010. And one of the things that actually sold me on staying with the company through the buyout was actually coming to Landscape Structures. When you take a factory tour and you walk through, the women that are, some of the women that skive the plastic off the slides, they talk about how they take the inner side of the plastic pieces and rub them on their inner wrist to make sure that kids don't get injured or feel any scrapes. Everybody, the guys on the dock that are loading the trucks are asking about P&L and what we're doing with money as a company. So there's a lot of care going through the factory, and it's just a really great collaboration of people. And, you have a group of people that just want to do better and do things faster. And it's a great culture. So we're one of the few remaining independently owned businesses in the playground industry. Why that is a big deal is that a lot of the other vendors out there, there's a couple of major conglomerates that own the majority of the playground companies, and they are owned mostly by private equity firms. And a lot of them make decisions that really reflect what the board of directors wants to hear. We can do things that make sense because the only people we have to answer to are our employees, and that makes a huge, huge difference. We are able to be more creative. We can allocate our resources and time, and it really does make a difference. We've developed that concept of continuous play over 40 years ago. The fact that Landscape Structures was started by a landscape architect does make a huge difference. It's kind of infiltrated into our DNA of how we design. We have over 75,000 playgrounds worldwide in the ground, probably more than that by now. We're the leader in creating higher level of inclusive play. A lot of the inclusive products that you see on the market started out with our innovations and designs. We use a philosophy of user first. We try to make sure that inclusive pieces that are out there actually engage the user. So our Global Motion, for example, has transfer points where wheelchairs can transfer on and grab holds. They also have plastic coating on them so that kids that have cochlear implants don't get any static discharges. Our spinner that we have where a wheelchair can roll on, we have a gear in the middle where kids can actually turn themselves. So we're really big on empowering the user. We don't want a ride that somebody has to go and push somebody on. Our multi-person to and fro rocker, same thing. We've designed it so that a person in a chair can actually get on there and rock it themselves and get that feeling of empowerment. So we really believe very heavily in having people get that socialization, number one, and have that learning and challenge experience. And that's it's really in the DNA of the products that we create. We're 100% Minnesota made. So we are about 98% American sourced products. And we have probably about 10 buildings on our campus right now. We have our own rotationally molded plastic slide factory and rotationally molded plastic. All the plastic that comes on the playground comes out of our factory. We have a glass fiber reinforced concrete factory. We make our own concrete. We have a full metal shop. We do our own rope cell cords. If you buy anything from us, it's coming from our facility and it's made by our people. So if anything goes wrong, you don't have to worry about other vendors. They outsource for GFRC, for example. So if things aren't matching up correctly, they have to go to a third party. We don't have to do that. We are all in-house. And that the culture of continuous improvement is a big deal. And to that point, our lead time typically is about 2 weeks for standard play equipment. For custom play equipment, it can be a little bit longer. But we can usually make a playground and get it out faster than almost any other vendor in the industry. We've been, in terms of certifications, since 1998, we've been reaching the ISO 14001 certification, which is very big deal. We're the first in the industry to have that. We are also Minnesota Waste-wise, we've gotten that leader award, the High Tech Association Green Award in 2008. We have this program called Global Relief, where what we do is we'll show you a little bit down the way. Our play structure actually comes with a document that tells you the exact breakout of metal, what percentage is pre-consumer recycled, post-consumer recycled, and what the carbon footprint of your play space is. And then we plant those trees at the end of the year to cover our carbon footprint. So that's a very big deal. And we have 15 years of experience with environmental process enhancements. We do dumpster dives, we check our garbage. We've been doing this since before it was popular to be greenwashing everything. It's just part of what we do. Talk a little bit about materials. So I talked about the employee passion, the design leadership, quality, customer-centric philosophy. A couple of pictures on here are really meant to just point out a couple things. I have a picture of the post and clamp in there just to talk a little bit about. We use a post and clamp system. That's really important and is a really good way to fasten the product together. One of the reasons that we do that is because it allows us to do retrofit down the road. So if you decide right now, like when you put your playground in, a lot of people look at the playground has a certain shelf life. We design our playgrounds with post and clamp so that it's easier to install, number one, and number two, if you decide down the road that you want to modify your play structure or, play events change, there's, historically traditional play had been very popular and then non-traditional play came in. Traditional play being you go up a set of stairs, over a bridge, down a slide, and you have a looping pattern. Non-traditional being no right way in or out, you climb over anything. We've become, I guess that process is kind of melded together and play events have changed over time. With the post and clamp system, you can change some of that stuff out. The picture just below that, we have a sliding footer. So things like, plastic expands and contracts with heat and cool. If you have a direct bolt system, it can really put stress on your hardware, which you can't see. Having these relief places where the equipment can move over time really helps out in terms of longevity, so you don't get cracks in your slide and fatigue. Just a really smart finish of some of the stuff we do. The hardware below, you see the Loctite on there. All equipment comes, I don't want to say we're like the IKEA of builders, but we can have really good installation instructions and we pre-pack and prepare all the equipment so that when it goes out to the installers and anybody who happens to be installing it, if you guys did want to do a partial DPW install or even community build, all the stuff comes with Loctite on there. the picture just up to the right, adjacent to that. All the hardware packets have pictures on it. So everything's weighed out, kitted out, and you're getting exactly what you need for a play space. So all that stuff is really well thought out and planned.
Hey, Mike, can I interrupt for 2
Yep.
seconds? So I wanted to just tell you guys that post and deck, that clamp system right there on that top left photo, that has been the way they have done it since the beginning. And I will tell you that in my 22 years in the playground industry, there are a lot of different manufacturers of playground equipment who have done it like 3 or 4 different ways in that 22 year time period. And our system is so amazing in that, like, I'm going to give an example of Vinograd Park in Charlestown. That playground was put in 1998. So it is technically, officially 22 years old. But about 4 or 5 years ago, they started upgrading. They started saying, oh, maybe we can take off this slide and you guys have this new cool slide here. And boy, wouldn't it be great if the climber over here came off? And we made all of these great retrofits. We added more equipment, and it's a really great playground to go look at if you want to see what a 22-year-old playground looks like. Again, some of those components are newer, but the bones of that playground is 22 years and going strong. We added really cool new colors because, there's definitely the 90s colors, and then there's definitely, more 20 teens colors that are pretty neat. So it's an amazing tribute to how good we can do design and longevity with playgrounds.
Even Nantasket Beach in Hull, Mass, we did a retrofit of a playground there, right on the waterfront, and it's getting sandblasted and salted daily. That was an $85,000 structure to start out, and 15 years later, with all the weathering and beating, for about $12,000, we retrofit that with new handrails, new decks, new play events, and it was like a brand new playground. So there's some really great things you can do. To the point Megan made about the color, just the little picture above that in the upper right. We've come out with so many new colors. Our color palettes, a simple change in a playground can make a big difference. We also use an epoxy primer to help keep the color last longer. So depending on what system you use, we have hot dip galvanized also, if this is going to be in a coastal area. Lots of different finishes, lots of amazing colors. We got interior decorators, designers, we have color experts on staff, and they help us to come up with some really neat, fresh ideas for color that can make a big difference. And then the last picture down here on the right I'll talk about is a process called Digifuse, and we'll show you some really great examples of that. We can literally take a high-res image, anything you want, and we can bake it onto a steel or an aluminum plate that's extremely light stable. So we can do some very great personalization in terms of stakeholders, donors, community representation. We literally can take a picture of us on here and put it on a high-res picture and put it on a play space and use it as a photo op if somebody wanted to do that. So we'll show you some examples of what that looks like. But bottom line is we take a lot of thought into how the material goes together, how it lasts, how it looks, and all that goes into it. And this is just another quick overrun too. I put the picture in here just to show some of the pieces that we have. So our tire swing hanger is a great opportunity to talk about some of the ways you can like retrofit like a piece like that. Like our tire swing hanger is a little bit more expensive than other vendors. However, bushing, we've designed, engineered all of our pieces down to simple fixes. So if something breaks, you don't have to buy a whole new play event. You can put in a new bushing or bearing, and that tire swing hanger should last you the life of your playground. So it does cost probably 15-20% more than competitors, but it's a lifelong piece that you can continually service. We talked about the sliding footers. The Tender Tough coating, this one over here, I just wanted to talk about that real fast. We put this plastic coating on all the places that kids grab. It helps the equipment stay cooler in the summer, warmer in the winter, more grippy. Also for kids that have cochlear implants, as I mentioned before, it helps cut down on static discharge. And we put that on all the places that kids might come into contact with their hands. So a lot of smart finishes. Like if you think about it, when you get into a car and it's got all the stuff in the right places. You're like, I can't believe somebody thought of that. They put a little pad next to the seat so when change doesn't fall in there. We really have taken a lot of time to make sure that all those spots and pieces are actually addressed. We use a lot of recycled material. We switched over probably 4 or 5 years ago. Everything in the middle has black core, and that black core is 100% post-consumer recycled. So we're keeping garbage out of landfills, and we are also, providing all sorts of different colors. We use half inch thick permaline.
Three-quarter inch thick.
Three-quarter inch permaline.
And that's 72%. So the total part of that permaline is 73% post-consumer recycled plastic. So that, like Mike said, that whole black part is your whisk bottle, your Tide bottle, everything that you actually throw into the recycling can is not always ending up in the ocean. We do use a lot of that material, and it looks sharp.
And our concrete plant is zero emissions, as well as our shade facility. We recycle and recapture all the water and all that stuff. This goes into more about the detail about our recyclability, but I'll pass on a little bit of that just to get to a little bit, show you the deliverables and get into what we can do from a design capability standpoint. This is that sheet I mentioned that you get with every playground. It tells you exactly what's in your play space and how much steel and aluminum. And we have a design team, we have a group of experts that really help collaborate on it. Megan mentioned before, they have a designer on staff, which helps out to get all the information that you guys need and start putting together your design. And I'll hand it over to you, Megan, to talk a little bit about that.
So here's a great slide of people, a group not unlike yourself who had a vision, wanted something. And so this was the first, I'm sure it wasn't the first go around, but there's their 3D drawing, and Mike's going to show their reality. So we can do a lot of stuff. We have a lot of capabilities. I mean, you can see there's a lot of materials in this design, everything from fabric to glass fiber reinforced concrete to recycled plastic to steel to a roller, that giant roller slide on the right, on the right-hand side going down that hill. We can do tons of stuff, obviously ropes, but it just gives a great example of, concept to vision to reality. So really quickly, like I said before, this was a design that I had done for you guys during your DEM grant process. It is not the end all be all. This didn't have a lot of your feedback. I mean, this was us just trying to get something together so that you guys could submit in a very short period of time. But I want you to realize that this is just a concept. It's just an idea. There's a lot of ideas out there, which we're going to show you. But some of you may be familiar with this. I wanted to show you this because someone had brought it up in discussions with me a while ago about Tiverton, and not too far from you guys is Noah's Place Playground in New Bedford. I hope some of you have been there. It's a highly, highly, highly inclusive playground. Tons of accessibility, tons of opportunities for everyone, no matter what your ability. If you haven't been out there, that's a good one to go see my playground equipment at. It's a very thoughtful park design. It is not just about a playground.
Sorry, Megan, there's 5 or 6 references also to a park like Noah's Place Playground in some of the comments from the referendum that you guys took. So a lot of people did reference this play space as well. So.
And then in the other direction is Jamestown Community Playground. Again, a really great one to go see. Not, so a little bit heavier on the theming side with this one. Some great inclusivity on it, not to the level of Noah's, but every playground is unique and every playground committee has a different vision. So no matter what your vision, no matter what your goals are, we've got a lot of abilities to help with that. So we have custom capabilities. Obviously, this is a highly customized playground right here that's in Minnesota. Lots of cables, lots of recycled plastic planking, very contemporary instead of nature themed. when we're using the recycled plastic here. High heights. I mean, these kids we're battling with them on and iPads, right? And so we've got to get them out the car, into the park, really understand and experience the outdoors and nature in some way, at least in a structured way, at a park. And we've got to give them something that challenges them. And so these pictures, especially the ones on the right, where you can, the top and the bottom, I mean, these kids are challenged. They are motor planning all over the place in those little brains. And what am I going to do? You know, overstimulation, right? Of all the sensors. So very exciting.
And this play space also, this was originally a wooden play space that had to be ripped out after a lot of use, number one, but also the cost of maintenance year over year was starting to get a little bit too burdensome. So they wanted to replace it with something that had the same look, feel, was a little bit more modern and would last a little bit longer. So they wanted all these ropes and the nets. And I don't know if you guys can see over here, there's a ramp that gets through. The wood structure did not have accessibility for chairs to get across it. Chairs, there's all sorts of play events and ways for kids in chairs to interact and play on this structure. And it comes off an embankment. So a lot of great opportunity, but this was a throwback to an old playground that went in. To talk more about the custom capability, this is some of the Digifuse that I talked about earlier. If you see the zebra over here, the cost of custom can really vary. I know you may see some of this stuff and say it looks amazing, but it's super expensive. And we're not going to be able to afford that, to do that kind of stuff. But you actually can. So Digifuse process is pretty simple. Like I said, it's a powder coated sheet. If you want a 3D, like lion or bear or zebra, for example, that'll probably cost $30,000 or $40,000 for one of those play events. However, if we do a flat panel imprinted version, this could probably be a couple $1,000 add-on, not too much. We can even integrate some play events into these, like marble panels, tic-tac-toe, whatever. But you can see some of the detail. So this was in a zoo. They wanted a way to kind of attract kids to come over and pull the theming in to match the zoo. So we did these for, I think, a $2,800 add-on. This over here is a playground that's in the Grand Canyon area. They wanted kids to feel like they were climbing up out of the Grand Canyon and sliding down into it. So we took these panels. You can see the resolution on here. And I have some 10-year pictures of ours compared to other vendors out there to show how the color lasts, just to show they're not going to look faded in a short period of time. And we can do things like butterflies, all sorts of simple theming to make some of these areas really pop. Here's an example of how you can put like a marble panel integrated into whatever that thing is. Sorry, giraffe. I forget my animals today. I haven't been out of the house in a while. You can do information panels, history panels. You can do flags. You can do whatever. We can do farm themes and aesthetics. We use lots of different materials. This is a very high-end detail example of what you can do on the high end of the spectrum for a farm theme. And you can climb and play through this whole thing. It's got a steering wheel. It's got spring rockers in here. We've got GFRC. There's chickens around. You can do something as simple as permaline. You can do Digifuse. You can do metal. We can do concrete, pretty much whatever. Here's an opportunity to do, kind of photo ops and kids put their faces in here. This is at Rosedale Recreation Center. The whole point behind this play space was kids in DC were not getting a chance to go down and interact with the downtown DC monuments. So they put in a play space where kids can actually go and play on these events. So at this playground, you can go sit on Abe Lincoln's lap. There's a GFRC Abe Lincoln, and they have these information panels and historical panels to talk about what's going on. Even on the custom side, we've done a lot of products, and we have this process called DTR, which is design tool ready. And we can take products that are very popular. For example, we came out with this thing. It's called the Crab Trap. When it first came out, it was $150,000. Got designed and requested so much that we standardized it, and the price was dropped down to $67,500. So we have pieces like these that are, if you're okay with reuse and using some things that have already been made, we can do some super duper amazing custom with some reuse for a very affordable price. And we can really make your area pop if we have a little flexibility. But we put a lot of play events in our activities. You'll probably look at this and notice how many play events are on here. And that was one of the comments I noticed on your referendum quite a bit, is people want challenging play events that can service a lot of people. and you can fit a ton of kids on here. We put pretty much every event we have on here. And since this one came out, these coconut ropes, we've converted over from using ropes that start to fray, and we've used pieces of our rubber belting to make a very environmentally friendly version of that. So lots of surface area on the nets. We can fit a ton of kids on our play events. The Super Netplex is a really awesome piece that came out as well. The product goes super high. You can see right through these, the visibility on these. This is a real picture, not a 3D rendering. This is actually out in the field, so you can see the houses behind it. One of the really cool things we did on these net climbers is, I don't know if you'll notice this corkscrew climber that goes up the middle. Jill Moore, who's one of our inclusion specialists, she's in a chair. She can transfer out of her chair and can actually crawl all the way up to the top of this. So that's a huge deal. A lot of these play events are, you put this in and any kid will look at this and say, this is amazing, I need to play on this. And kids that can crawl out of their chair can get up to the top and get up to that 12-foot slide and have that experience.
And can I say that I just put one, so this is a double tower, but I just put one of these in Lincoln, Rhode Island at the McCall YMCA. So it's brand new. It's technically still under construction. There's just one asphalt path we have to pave, but otherwise the rubber's down, the port in place, the wood fiber, the playground's up. It took us a little while with a 2-man crew trying to do it COVID style, but it's up, and hopefully for those kids, they'll be able to participate in some sort of camp this summer. But if you guys wanted to go see it, it's pretty cool. But these are all standard products. So that was one of the things that we wanted to show you, is that there's some really cool things in custom that we do, but there's some amazing things that are standard. This is a monkey bar on the underside and a bridge on the overside, up above. They have one of these in Jamestown, if you're ever curious. But all of those rocks, that's all standard. Tons of cable, tons of moving parts, tons of motor planning, very cool stuff that is standard.
And there's little critters on each of those rocks too, so that there's little fun things for kids to seek and find, lots of little surprises. The other thing is those canyon pieces are very affordable, number one. They're about $5,000 a panel, but you can put them together and wrap that around that whole structure and actually make an enclosed rock structure. And we've designed it so that it doesn't need ADA technically, but we've designed it to fit it so a wheelchair could actually roll in the middle and play on the inside of those spaces. So we've actually kind of baked some inclusion into a design like that. So this is our Smart Play Center. Megan, do you want to talk about that, or you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, so I'll talk about it. So this is a Smart Play Center. It's for 2 to 5 year olds. We have 3 that are standard. It's the Loft, the Farmers Market Cafe, which you can see right there, and then there's a fire station. You can put all 3 together. You can just do 2 as they've shown here, but very cute little houses, quiet spaces right underneath. You can go all the way underneath at the first level. There's the second level. There's a lot of cool little tactile. What's great for children who are 2 to 5 years old is that they learn a lot by tactile movements, by small movements. All of these little things you can see, there's like flowers and petals and a pepper and a corn. All of those things move along tracks. There's a lot of talking is teaching. So there's a chance for a father and his daughter to sit down at this table and look at all these words that are on the bricks that talk about salty or sweet or sour, things like that. There's a pickup order, so there's some pretend play there. There's some ability to talk about fruits and vegetables. I actually did one of these. It's very cute. It's in South Kingstown with a small, much smaller playground than you guys are envisioning, but it was a small 5 to 12-year-old silo barn theme. And then there was this little farmer's market for the 2 to 5. So it was a cute little spin on farm to fork.
We designed that in conjunction with Head Start and Too Small to Fail to help early childhood literacy. And they have about 15 play events per house. So
very cute.
Next slide. So I don't know why it's going. Oh, there we go. Next slide. This has some Digifuse on here. These are some of the talking as teaching panels. One of the really cool things we've also done is we've put, we've Digifused all our warning signs. I don't know if you guys have warning stickers on your play space that are peeling off and looking kind of nasty. And we've kind of designed those so that doesn't happen anymore. So these get riveted on the post. But just examples of things to show the longevity of how our product lasts. This is a custom space. One of the main reasons we wanted to put this in here is just to show kind of Digifuse and the importance of it. So for this playground, what was really important to the community was the masonry that, I guess they had the manufacturer of that brick in that town and they wanted to celebrate it and make sure it showed up right and it didn't look different than it was supposed to. So we Digifused that look on there so that they could see it. And then these are some panels. These are all standard panels that you can put through the anatomy of a bee and various pieces and items that you can highlight because of the area, its importance. You can really tie that into the play space. There's some that are standard, there are some that are not. We do glass fiber reinforced concrete and precast concrete. Glass fiber reinforced concrete is for more of the custom elements. We use precast for some of the more standard items that we put through. And remember, I told you before how the Canyon collection was designed. You could fit a chair through there. And you can see some of the critters like the bats, the ladybug. There's all sorts of stuff for kids to find throughout the play space. The recycled poly, the quality has gone up every year. It's even better now since what you see in here, it's got little flecks of different colors in there to look very real. We attach the ropes and the cables and everything. And one of the reasons we do reuse recycled poly, I don't know if you want to talk about this, Megan, or you want me to talk about it? Up to you.
Yeah, I mean, so we know we're not providing like natural materials. We're not trying to dupe anyone. We know fully well that we're providing materials that look like nature. And it's because of the maintenance. It's because of the longevity. So not to knock anyone down, it's just that wood cracks, and we know that you've got maintenance guys and you have people that have to maintain this playground for the life of it, and the less you can do that, the better. And that's just our philosophy. That's how we look at things, is how do we provide a product that nobody has to touch, and 22 years later it's looking amazing. So, and
LSI, just for your record too, LSI started out as a wood company in 1967. We used to do redwood playgrounds up until about 1984 when we switched over to a metal shop because just the service was getting a little too much. So we have done it, we have tried it. And here's the recycled poly version as a throwback to a wood play space also, just to give you the aesthetic. And here, oh, go ahead. You want to say something, Megan?
I just wanted to say, go back to that slide, Mike, if you would. So it's just, there's a lot of things we can do with those recycled plastic planks. They allow us to do things that you couldn't really do with wood, and the warranty on them is amazing. We can talk about that in a little while, but there's opportunities for above play and underneath. It could be a tunnel, it can be a climber, it can be a pretend quiet space. So just, I love that particular climber a lot. It goes from deck to deck. There's more of our GFRC. Just, we pride ourselves on realistic designs. I would say walking into the GFRC building at Landscape Structures is like you're walking into an artist's enclave. They themselves are not really factory workers in the way that maybe you might walk in and the welder might say he's a factory worker. These guys are true artists, and you can see that they pride themselves on realism. And I think that's amazing.
Here's
a good example Mike had.
Yeah, I put together collections of images to compare, how everybody stacks up against each other, and you can see the difference in detail. So everything gets a lot of detail into it. So we have tower. Oh, you want to talk about the towers, Megan?
Yeah, I love height. I think kids love height. There's obviously a way to do it super safe. Maybe somebody has seen Jamestown, so you can go all the way to the top. You can't fall off accidentally. You can have open bed slides. You can have tunnel slides. I just think kids are thrilled more by height. I think having a 4-foot high slide on a 5 to 12-year-old playground is nothing more than a climber. I love nets and the height on nets and the spatial distancing and the motor planning and the hanging out and the socializing, and no way is the same way that you climbed before. And we also have these climbers right in the middle of all these nets. On the left, it's sort of a conical climber you can see, and on the right, it's more of a belting. And the way that the openings on the belting are they're not right above each other. You have to sort of go from one side to the other as you climb up. It's very cool.
There's
Very
different
fun.
levels of challenge, as you've seen, from the enclosed to the non-enclosed. We do sensory play. We talked about inclusion before and our philosophy on that, and we really like to focus on user engagement. Like I said, we want to make sure the kids get that experience. And a lot of these play events you see have, a huge amount of play value. So there's 16 play events.
We have 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay.
Yep.
How do you want to do this? I guess, do you want us to fire through? Do you have questions?
Just keep going. Just keep going.
Just keep going? Rapid
Yep.
speed, micro machine? Okay. Our zip crews, we've got
No, I mean, keep going in the slides.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Roller slides, roller tables. Keep going. We have awesome zip crews, 3 different lengths with 2 different types of seats. Global motion is really popular, as Mike had said in the beginning. It's accessible. You can transfer right onto from your wheelchair. There's another piece that you can transfer from your wheelchair right on. They have high back seats. Cozy Dome, just great cozy spaces for children of all ages. The Weesaw, high back seats, full postulation support, very inclusive piece.
One other thing to point out about this real fast is all the places, like all the springs and everything, are all enclosed, so kids can't get their hands in there. I've seen some of those rockers out there where kids can actually stick their hands in. It's a little bit dangerous. We've also done some modifications to a piece like this. So if quadriplegics are using it, we can put plates on the bottom so that their feet don't get stuck underneath. Lots of ways to modify.
We've got great sensory panels. I'll be the first to admit that some sensory panels are terrible. We have some pretty good ones for sure. So Oodle Swing, here's a good example at Jamestown. New Bedford might have one, I'm not sure, but that's a great piece for, again, inclusion and cooperative play and together. We have musical instruments, great musical instruments.
Quality is really great. Sounds like real percussion drums. The chimes are tuned to G major when they go out. Awesome for multi-generational. Lots of people use them.
Multi-generational for sure. We talked a little bit about this stuff, but just great pieces for 2 to 5. And we have fitness equipment. So we have three or 4 different types of fitness equipment. We have Health Beat, which is all ages. We have something a little bit more extreme called FitCore Extreme, more of like the ninja course type stuff. And then we have these fitness clusters. I think some of you might have heard of or seen the Fit Lot we did at the Newport Senior Center with AARP. That was a great piece as well. If you want to go down and see that, it's at Freebody, I think. It's where the Senior Center in Newport is. Each piece comes with signage that talks about the proper use of the equipment and also what muscle groups are used. We touched upon our colors. We have amazing colors. Even if you didn't want to do natural, certain materials, you could make something look like a nature themed just on color alone. We have shade, fabric shade. That is Landscape Structures brand right there. They're made out of Dallas, Texas.
It can be integrated into the play space too. So if you did want to integrate that into the play area and save on use zone and possibly help out some permits, that could be done.
That's in East Greenwich, Rhode Island. We have steel structures as well. I use Polygon. We have misters, full splash pads, or just a simple mister, depending upon what your water needs are. There's a playground in New Bedford at the airport. Just talking about different surfacings, there's engineered wood fiber, there's board in place, there's turf, combination of both. Here's our warranty. Mike, you want to talk about that? And it's our last slide.
We're very clear about our warranty. We have a 100-year warranty on the post. We have 15-year warranty on most of our metal parts, and it goes down from there. It's very listed out. It's in our vested interest to make sure the playground lasts well. We're pretty lenient on our warranty. We want to make sure the playground lasts, so we don't kind of mince words on the lifetime, it's 100 years, and we space it out. Most of the warranty stuff comes to me first to get approval, and I haven't denied a warranty claim yet. We've even warranted stuff that has been put in incorrectly.
And when you see some warranties and they talk about lifetime or they talk about pro rating, we don't do that. I won't talk about why you should be skeptical of a warranty like that, but we don't do it.
And that was Micro Machine version. So thank you guys very much. Any time for any questions or anything we didn't answer?
Yeah, if there are questions from the group.
I guess we answered them all.
Yeah, it was a good presentation. I guess at this point, you know, you're going to let us look at all the different options you guys have, and then do a little mix and match, then work with your designers. That'd be kind of the next step.
Yeah, so the next step would be I would come down and I can bring my designer, Joe, and we can listen to what you guys have for your vision. And, you know, usually that's about an hour, and we sort of weed out what your goals are. And then I go away and I design, and then we come back and we probably have a couple revisions after that, just narrowing down. But that's essentially how we would work.
We got lots of stuff we could storyboard with you, depending on, you know, if you want custom or non-custom. Our standard equipment is fantastic. But the nicest thing about it is it's a lot of fun. The equipment's very engaging. It will last you a long time. There won't be a lot of maintenance. And if you have a problem, we are here to help you out in any way we can. I've done community builds with Megan. She is dynamite. She can turn a wrench with the best of them, or do professional build. We've got a really good team of people that always answer their phone and are here to help out now and in 15, 20 years, whatever you need.
Yep, I have great installers as well. Some that are pretty close to you guys, proximity wise.
So what kind of cost savings do you say there is if you're looking at you're putting together something that standard that you already have versus doing something, you know, custom?
So if the engineering is all done and completed, we have stuff, as I mentioned, that DTR process that we could literally, so like a wavy climber, for example, if there was a wavy climber that you wanted on there and we had one that was fully engineered, it could be probably not much more than some standard equipment. So like I mentioned, that crab trap, that piece that had, you know, looked like a crab trap, that started out as a 150,000 piece, but when it got standardized, we'd done it 3 times. On the 3rd time, we standardized it and we dropped the price in half. So we can design, if you have a budget you want to work within, you know, we'll pick and choose materials that will fit in that budget. So, we've done $1.5 million playgrounds and we've done $25,000 playgrounds that have had custom. And some of them, like if you said, I really like, Fort Washington playground, which is like a tree theme and, all sorts of nature pieces, and it's all GFRC. We've done scale back versions at 70,000, 140,000, 500,000, and that one's like 800,000. So we would pick and choose materials. We could digifuse wood grain on the post as opposed to using concrete. So we come to you with a few different options of ways we could achieve your goal, and you could pick and choose what's best. There's also, ways like there's certain panels that are more expensive and other ones that are less expensive. We could, even the shade, we can integrate our shade into our play structure. Let's say you wanted shade on there. We could integrate it into the post, and then you're only using 1 footer as opposed to putting down, several major footers and having use zone. So the conglomeration, using your whole budget, we can maximize certain things by doubling up some stuff as well. Thank you. No problem. Even with inclusion, from a topography standpoint, we can do some pretty amazing things with topography if that's going to be a factor in the park to get wheelchairs up to heights as well. So even from a site plan, we can talk to you about ways you can arrange your site to really maximize either underplay or overplay, etc. So.
Gotcha. I apologize for kind of cutting it short on our end because I'm keeping everything equitable. We're sort of at the end of our time. Thank you guys very much. I'll be certain that there will be more questions that will come up, and we'll reach back out to you guys in this process. As I said to everybody, we haven't signed the grant paperwork yet, so we're still in our due diligence phase, but really appreciate you working with us to put this together and giving us some of your time. So thank you both. Really, really do appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you guys.
Thank you. Fantastic presentation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.
Right. So on back to the agenda. I'm not going to open up for discussion right now among each other. We'll
Sorry, I'm trying to leave. Okay.
Oh, you're good. You're good. always love when the hands go up. What I was going to say is this has been a long, I don't know that we necessarily want to get into discussion at the moment unless there's anything in particular that somebody wants to mention. I'm thinking it's a good opportunity for us to collect thoughts maybe separately and then continue in the next conversation in obviously an open session. But is there anything just in particular somebody wants to comment on now in general, not specific to any vendor? Josh?
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that when I put this out to our vendors, I made it clear that we had already vetted them. We wanted them to present their concept for the space to us and present us a solid concept that we could kind of, use as a basis for our decision. And only one of them did that. I just want to make sure. I wanted to make sure that everybody kind of understood that this was the expectation that I set from the beginning. So I just want to make sure that was clear.
Yep. Thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
Any other comments? Okay. There were no public or open comments submitted prior to this. So there's no feedback on this end. I do think there were some folks watching. I think Sally Black was on, so you're still there. Hi, Sally. And with that being said, I will accept the motion to adjourn.
Stu, I'll make a motion to adjourn, but also thanks to Chris Carter. He's been working very hard and working some late hours, and you as well. Probably 40 hours at work and another 40 for the town. So with that, a motion to adjourn.
So we have a motion, a second between Chris and Dave. All in favor, raise your hand so I can see. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the time.